Hello, good evening and welcome ladies and gentlemen to another round of riveting racing action in the SimRacing International Thursday GT3 Championship Season 13 as brought to you on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC known as iRacing. We are back once again today for another round of intense racing action, and in round number 5 of 10, which earmarks the end of the first half of the season, we complete our American doubleheader in the US state of Wisconsin at none other than Road America. A true countryside classic, this circuit is one of a limited number in the world that over its extensive 70 plus year history, its layout of 4.04 miles in length has remained entirely unchanged. Yes, an alternate layout has been added with a chicane added before the infamous kink, but otherwise the full course that you'll see our drivers racing today, it is the same course that it opened up with all those many years ago. A true power circuit at its core, with long extended straights giving way to condensed corner sequences that of course are preceded by heavy braking zones. This is one of those circuits where the need for speed and top end performance are going to be absolutely key, but never rule out of course an all-important strategy. Particularly we do have the second endurance race round of the season on the cards today, and therefore those who are smart in the draft and able to fuel save well, they may just be able to come out on top versus the rivals who will be going all in with the power and may then find themselves deflowered at the front with regards to the fact that some strategy may just prove to be a little bit smarter than brawn in the engine department. But who exactly is going to come away victorious and who may be leading the championships are today? Well, that's what we're here to find out, to bring you all the racing action live from circuit side. Indeed, you're sat there right now tuning into Split B, our Premier and Club classes taken to the grid, but of course we have two broadcasts in parallel live from circuit side. You do have the Split A broadcast as well, available on the same place as the Split B broadcast, and that's on youtube.com, and search for SimRacing International SRI. Split A will be covering our top two classes in terms of the class tiering of Elite and Pro, and you'll be in the very capable hands of Joe Glass and Darragh Thacker. Indeed, why not tune into that as well? But if you do decide to stay over here in Split B, well, of course, you're going to be covering both the Premier and the Club classes, our bottom two tiers, but no lesser drivers, no doubt about it. In the commentary booth, you're going to have myself. My name is Paul Walsh, initiated, and I shall be your host and commentator for Split B throughout the entirety of the season. But as we make our way into this round and complete the first half of the season, well, it's interesting to see how our championship poised, particularly after the stories of VIR. And without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's bring you up to speed with the story after round number 4 and see exactly where the standings stand as we head into what could be a crucial juncture for some drivers, particularly at the front of both classes. For as we can see as we take a look back at our calendar, we have made our way around the globe, starting in the USA, in the US state of New York at Watkins Glen. Then we made our way all the way down under to Australia for the Mount Panorama circuit, and then we made our way to the European continent for the circuit of Spa-Francorchamps. But last time out, we were at the Virginia International Raceway, or VIR, located in the US state of Virginia, and we have made our way northwestwards from it. But when exactly went down on the 23rd of July, many of you may be asking Split B for round number 4. Well, there's some interesting stories, no doubt about it. We did have 51 drivers take on the Marmite circuit, where some absolutely love it, some absolutely hate it, and then there are those who are in between. However, we did see a qualifying ban for Andy Rooney in the club class, and Peter Armstrong opted not to qualify, but both did go racing. But in that qualifying session, we got to see a very different story at the front of the field. Typically, over the last couple of rounds, the battle for overall and Premier pole has been very close, and it's normally been Liam Fraser and another driver. But this time out, it was not. Liam Fraser taking a rapid lap to pole position by almost 4 attempts ahead of James Howarth, and me on Menno Bloem and Dean Sheesbeard line up behind on the second row. But all eyes were on the 5th place man. In the end, Eddie Theobold with his best qualifying points of the season, and that 5th place overall, he was almost 9 attempts off a pole position. But to be fair, improving on one of his key weaknesses, he admitted in his post-round interview from VIR, and that is his qualifying pace. But as for the club class, well, on home soil once again, Steve Rubino did not disappoint, taking pole position by 3 attempts and 8 overall, and that's pole of class ahead of Denny Ploger, who took his best qualifying performance of the season with 2nd in club. And then we saw a little bit further behind, Michael Rhodes was only a 10th of a Ploger, but the difference between the two of them in terms of overall positions, 13th to 16th, with two Premier drivers being threaded in the space. But the biggest shock in qualifying was for Mikhail Salkuni, only matching 31st overall and 10th in the club class, his weakest qualifying performance so far to date. And then we went into the race, and how things suddenly got turned around in the race very quickly, because the open lap was full of excitement and drama. Menno Bloem immediately brought the excitement to the circuit, and the fact he went for the double move up the inside into turn 1 at Horseshoe Hairpin for the lead, but got on the throttle just a little bit too soon on corner exit and went sliding to the grass with oversteer. However, he did rejoin in 9th place overall and was able to carry on, but this completely unsettled the top 5 in Pro and overall, and it allowed Liam Fraser, the pole sitter, to begin making an early break as Dean Sheesby, James Howarth and Eddie Theobold all fought hard for the 2nd, 3rd and 4th place spots. We also saw some other drivers get involved into that mix, with Eddie Theobold, who gradually make his way into 2nd place by the end of lap 3, and he would not let it go for the remainder of the race. And behind instance through turns 3 through to 9 on the open lap, saw John Treen drop down the field, Steve Rubino dropped from the lead of the club class all the way down to 20th overall, overall hand in the club lead to Denny Ploger, and some huge shunts which forced Matthew Massey, Danny Weir, Ben Wayne and Ellen Olsen all to retire from the race. But then after the open lap, the club lead battle became the focus, whereby Denny Ploger was initially allowed to maintain a gap following Jack Giles' incident on lap number 7, but as the pro drivers made the way, or the Premier drivers I should say, made the way past Ploger, well, chaos unfolded on lap number 10, whereby Rhodes was able to take the lead through turns 1 through to 6, with Rhodes, Ploger and Rubino all fighting very hard, but Michael Rhodes stayed out of trouble, as meanwhile Steve Rubino and Denny Ploger made contact, and Joshua Daniel was watching from not too far behind. So in the big shuffle, well, suddenly what you got to see was the rise into the lead for Michael Rhodes in the club class, as meanwhile Denny Ploger lost out the most, Steve Rubino lost out to a degree, and Joshua Daniel also got into the thick of it. However, there'll be some difficulty towards the end of the first stint because whilst Michael Rhodes was being chased down by Steve Rubino would come in to make his pit stop first and end up speeding into the pit lane and pick up a stop and a hold penalty for his indiscretion, and therefore it meant he was out of the running for the club win. But further down the field, Ashley Shucksmith was storming his way through in the club class, going from 7th to 3rd on the first stint, and then emerging not too far behind Rhodes after his pit stop going on to that final stint, jumping down in via an undercut strategy. Well, indeed, it was the overcut for him, and Downing's undercut did not work out. Peter Armstrong looked set for his best drive of the season from the back of the field, until an instant on lap 27 ended his progress and with it his race. And in the second stint, we got to see some great battles, including a three-way fight for third place overall and in Premier between Howarth, Bloem and Wenman, where it all came down to minor margins, and it was James Howarth who won it in the end. And also we saw a three-way battle for 8th place in club between Andy Chell, Simon Hunt and Steve Rubino over the last 3 laps, which went the way of Andy Chell, even after a bit of a steward review, some late contact. But who exactly took the wins in the end? Won the Premier and overall class, and I do believe I keep referring to Premier as Pro. I do apologise for that. You'll have to forgive me, ladies and gents, but it has been a bit of an intense week with heat and also broadcast. But in the Premier class and overall, Liam Fraser converted the biggest pole lap margin of the season into victory. However, some would say if it were not for the mistake of Menno Bloem at the start, he may not have been able to make as easy a break. However, he had to seize the opportunity when it was presented to him, and he did not look back. And he was untroubled for the entirety of the race. It was his second win of the season by 8.7 seconds ahead of Eddie Theobold. As your club class, well, Michael Rhodes was able to bring home his second win through consistency. In fact, he qualified 3rd in class, 4 attempts off the pole time for Steve Rubino, but he benefited from lap 1 instant for Rubino and the subsequent Ploger-Rubino instant on lap 10 at turn number 5. That's what saw him take the lead. He was not the fastest by any means. Indeed, the fastest drivers out there in the club class, the likes of Ashley Shucksmith and Rubino. Ashley Shucksmith having an incredible second stint, but in the end, the gap was 2.3 seconds, and that's how Michael Rhodes was able to take his second win through just not making any mistakes out there. And so we come to Road America, where the fact we do have repeat winners in both classes, and they are leading away when it comes to championship standings, because when we come to the Premier class, first and foremost, it's Liam Fraser who leads now with 2 wins. That second win finally on the board, and keep in mind as well, we are now applying drop scores to the Drivers' Championship standings. Now he's doing his 320 points. He's only 8 ahead of Menno Bloem, and the difference between the two of them, of course, the fact Menno Bloem taking the victory in the season open endurance race round, which is worth more points, and of course he does have that second place from round number 2, but 11th that has been dropped, and a 4th place from the previous round. And meanwhile, conversely, we have the 2 wins for Liam Fraser, and the 3rd place in the season open accounted for him. But between the two of them, very little points there from MRC's driver through to the SimRacing Team Lowlands driver, and then just behind in 3rd. But you won't see him on the grid today because he is away on holiday, but I do believe he's tuning in, and we say hello to Dean Sheesby as he tunes in from the seaside. And when the Moonshiners Racing Club driver sits in 3rd with 255 points, but now he will lose some ground today, and this will effectively become his drop score, albeit previously round number 3 was his drop score with that difficult finish, and now he's got a lot more work to do as a result. Barry Webman sits in 4th for Dexterous Motorsports Magenta. Not the best of rounds for him at last time out, chasing that podium, but in the end taking the top 5. To be fair to him, a good result regardless, but of course wanting another podium there given how fierce the competition is. Clyde Vella sits in 5th, and well, it was an 8th place for him last out for GPX SimSport Xenon. Wasn't quite on the pace at VIL, but hoping today at Road America he can be a bit quicker at his McLaren. James Howarth, by comparison, now 2 podiums on the bounce, albeit a 2nd and a 3rd. He wants the 1st place spot on the podium. Could he get it today in the power-hungry Ford Mustang for Dexterous Motorsports Siam? He's only 8 points ahead of Mark De Vries, who's yet to finish on the podium this season, has only had 1 top 5 as well, but can he make it another top 5 today, or perhaps his first podium for SimRacing Team Lowlands? As Meal the man on the march after his non-finish in round number 2, and of course prior to VIR it was a 5th place finish at none other than our 3rd round at Soak the Spa Francorchamps, whereas his maiden podium a 2nd place for Eddie Theobold, who had lightning quick pace in the race, and where he can get on top of qualifying he could be a race winner before we know it. He's only the best part of 11 points ahead of John Treen, who is yet to return to the podium after his heroics in round number 2 for Access and Sport with Sim Coach, and completing that top 10. The best best part there of 58 points behind. It's Robin Aston for 5M Racing. Then we do see Dave Collett in 11th place ahead of Ellen Olsen. The gap between the two of them are absolutely negligible. It all comes down to result countback, and Wes Collier ahead of Olsen at this time. But from the Validity V Racing driver who rounds up the top 12 in Premier, let's go to the club class. And here we can see Michael Rhodes leads the way now with 2 wins in the bank, and the Darkwing Racing driver definitely proved to be Mr. Consistent, albeit he knows he hasn't got the pace outright advantage versus some of his rivals, and many of them would like a shot at his leading run. 25 points behind him is the man with 3 podiums and a win so far as part of those. It's Type 2 Racing Joshua Downing, although he is yet to return to leading ways, and he'll be hoping to do that today. It is McLaren versus the Ferrari of Rhodes. But don't count out Ashley Shucksmith. He's had a third, he's had a second. Could he take his first win of the season today? The Moonshiners Racing Club driver in the McDonald's machine looked razor quick in the second stint of VIR on worn tyres, and could that be the secret to his success, that he's got the better tyre management skills out there? With Euro Titans Endurance, Jack Giles sits in 4th place meanwhile, 186 points, already earmarking a notable gap that's appearing between the top 3 and the rest of the field, although Ashley Shucksmith, you could say, is in no man's land, given the fact he's so far behind the leaders at the moment at this time, and he'll try to make up the ground of 68 points, but he does have that comfort gap of the best part of what is none other than 56 points versus the rest. But then from Jack Giles, we do have Mikhail Salcuni fall into 5th with another non-top 10 finish. In fact, outside of the top 10 in the end, and right now things are not working out for him whatsoever for the Rider Esports with Edge Overlays driver, and well, can he find a way to bounce back today? He's ahead of Andy Chell with the best part of 4 points for Quackmass Motorsport. Andy Chell having a good day at VIR, despite the result not being the top 5, but he enjoyed the battling out there, and then we do see Rob Gray from Moonshiners Racing Club a further 9 points behind. Marcus Clayton sits in 8th, teammates of Salcuni, and the Verano Esports with Edge Overlays driver had a difficult day as well alongside his teammates at VIR, but the better day of the two of them. And we have Christopher Petty in 9th place there, and well, not a happy day for him in Virginia, and he's ahead of Steve Rubino. Well, after that brilliant win, of course, the absolutely dominant victory at what was round number 3 at Spa-Francorchamps, VR definitely was a bit of a hit to reality there, but the Hobo Racing driver looking to go strong once again on home soil. Simon Hunt sits in 11th place, 6 points behind, and then we do have Danny Weir completing the top 12 of the club class. But then we come to the Teams Championship standings, and of course, these are the standings for teams across both splits, Split A and Split B, where some teams are entirely within Split B. You'll see them all here today. Some teams are entirely within Split A. You won't get to see them at all. Or alternatively, we do have some teams that are split across both of our splits, and therefore you have some drivers here and some also in the Split A broadcast. But either way, what you can definitely see now is after 4 rounds, where is the lead into the hands of Moonshiners Racing Club of Bootleggers. They've taken the lead for the first time this season after their huge results for Liam Fraser and Ashley Shucksmith of VIR, and can they now hold on to this lead, given the fact they have crafted themselves a lead of 71 points to Moonshiners Racing Club Rebels, their sister team, who've gone from 3rd to 2nd. They've inched ahead into 2nd place, but only by 5 points, head of Dexterous Motorsports Magenta. Now, as quickly as they move from 3rd into 1st, they have dropped back down to 3rd place. It was an okay round for the team in both splits, but they know they'll need more. With SimRacing team at Lowlands, conversely, going from 5th to 4th, but it was solid results because it wasn't the magical results they were hoping for, particularly for Menno Bloem. So can they perhaps arrest a slight rot in terms of those results and form as of today? Then we do have the SimRacing Collective number 1 team there, and that is none other than the combination of Pike, Sharp, Twaddock and Moss, and they sit in 5th place, always Split A, they have 537 points. Things did get a little bit elbows out for them in particular. In a qualifying session for Kieran Sharp, I do believe things went a bit wrong, and that went to the stewards, but indeed the team did get a solid set of results in the end, but VIR definitely proved to be a bit of a bruiser for the team that try to hold on to a spot inside the top 5, as they have dropped from 4th to 5th, but behind them is Darkwing Racing, and how they're moving forward from 7th to 6th now, and only the best part of 31 points behind the top 5, and indeed chasing down the potential trophies for this season. Dexterous Motorsport sign of 464 points, they are the best part, they have 18 ahead of NJP Performance, and the stories of the two teams there both moving up little by little. It's slight improvements for them as Axis is what with Sim Coach. Meanwhile, they've returned to the top 10 thanks to Split A performances. Now, can they stay in it? Looking particularly to Robert Furman and also Simon Clifton, as John Treen will definitely need to try and bounce back from his adversity at VIR and complete that top 10. It's Altitude 3M Esports who have remained in 10th place, but they know on 402 points right now, whilst they can make their way further up the order, they've also got to be nervous of this a bit about falling outside the top 10. Speaking of which, Euro Titans Endurance for their highest position so far of the season in 11th place, not on screen. They are 28 points off of the top 10 right now, would like to break into it come the end of today. And with the story set, and indeed our scene and our standings covered, well, let's talk a little bit about our host circuit, shall we? It is, of course, Road America's Full Course. Located near Elkhart Lake, Sheboygan County of the US state of Wisconsin. Now, the number of miles, 4.04 mile, or the number of kilometers, 6.51 there. So I put the number 4 on the brain, but regardless of the units you use, the number of corners that do exist on the circuit remains unchanged. That's 14 of them in total. And well, a huge thank you to iRacing.com, not just for their brilliant simulator, but also the fantastic track maps that enable us to see all these corners in splendor when it comes to a single image. Indeed, we've got a wide variety of sweeping bends. We've also got some very sharp 90-degree corners, which are the hairpins. And also we've got America's equivalent to the Carousel of Germany, the Nürburgring, of course. But as our drives roar the way up the start-finish straight, indeed it's a major elevation change while the lowest points of the circuit at turn number 14, the fighters are rising up and going over the start-finish line to complete the lap and go on to the next one. Speaking of which, they go into turn number 1 as they roar through the sweeping right-hander. The outside line there's the better line for battling, so therefore expect drivers to really push for that racing line. Then they'll make their way downhill through the Kinka 2 and in towards the sharp 90-degree right-hander at turn number 3. Out to that, it's all about the power as they roar the way down the Moraine sweep and in towards the sharp left-hand 90-degree hairpin at turn number 5, while they make their way into the condensed corner sequences of the middle sector. It's a blind rise as they make their way over a rise in towards turn number 6, braking before they can see the corner and go through that sharp left-hand 90-degree corner. It's then in towards the right-hander of Hurry Downs at turn number 7, and down the hill they'll go in towards another sharp 90-degree left-hander at turn number 8. Low-speed corner, well, the lowest on the circuit, and then they'll come through the carousel, sweeping the way for the double apex at turns 9 and 10, before making the way for the infamous kink, completely flat out in qualifying and close to flat out in the race, albeit towards the end of the race they may attempt flat out when they've got low fuel, and they'll be all the way down towards Canada Corner they'll go, but before going sharp onto the brakes. Over the rise at turns 13 to 13A, the chicane sequence there, no braking needed, just simply get your line right, and then make the way through turn number 14. They'll come out of the corner, and then they've got to be on the power as soon as possible to make the way to the start-finish line, and indeed nail that lap. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, we've nailed the scenery, we nailed the setting, so let's make our way back to the circuit, and let's see what's going on in qualifying with 15 minutes to go. And our qualifying session currently, well, there's only one name at the very front of it, a man who's definitely making a habit of being the quickest in qualifying sessions so far this season. It is Liam Fraser, and currently only 400ths quicker than Menno Bloem in his Ford Mustang. Now, we do know the Ford Mustang, a very powerful car when it comes to power circuits. Indeed, it goes to the name, then we do have a 5-litre V8. Indeed, the absolute bolting of the Ford Mustang there, in reference to the horse. And right now, he's definitely on his horse there. Liam Fraser charges his way down towards turn number 5. However, with only 400 between him and the BMW M4 Evo of Menno Bloem, who's weaving from side to side, trying to get a bit more tyre temperature into the car before he goes onto another flying lap. Well, could we see Menno Bloem cause a bit of an upset here? But don't rule out the fact, only a further 10th behind is James Howarth, another Ford Mustang. And we are seeing the Ford Mustang's been quite close to the front. Does seem as though the more recent balance reports updates have moved the car back to where it used to be, which is one of the leading contenders in GT3. However, it should be pointed out that whilst you may see in some very top split focused championships, and also on top of that top split of any iRacing official series that features GT3s, you'll simply see drivers that lean towards what is considered to be the most effective tactic available, or the meta car. Really here, when you're racing in split B and even in split A, it more comes down to you as a driver driving a car that you are comfortable with and you can get the most out of. That's why you don't see that many Ford Mustangs. In fact, if anything, you see quite a few Porsches, quite a few McLarens, and also Ferraris. The three cars are considered to be some of the most comfortable cars out there. And you may be sat there right now thinking to yourself, well, why is the Ford Mustang considered to be a comfortable car? Because it is actually one of the easier cars to drive on paper, particularly when you're going into a sprint race that is no longer than, say, 25 minutes. The thing about the Ford Mustang that makes it a difficult car is the fact it's a very heavy car, and when you do lean into the ABS in particular, it is very prone to overheating its front tyres. Given the fact it's front engine rear drive as well, when you overheat those front tyres, you lose a lot of front end grip, which is what the car is very reliant on. Given all the drive goes to the rear wheels, all the weight's on the front, you've got to get that front turned around the corner as quickly as possible, and therefore you can be very much at risk of understeering for a lot of corners, even so far as 35 to 40 minutes into our 1 hour races. And when we do a 90-minute endurance race here today, well, you put the dots together there, it's going to be uncomfortable if you do get it wrong early on and you cook those tyres too soon. First, James Howarth makes his way onwards. We talked a little bit about our leaders in Premier, and overall, what about in the club class? So right now, we've got a new name on top of the towel. That's Michael Lecco there, the LS Racer driver, the 217, parked up. A lovely view there if you've got your cameras out. And right now, waiting to go once again. I think he's been very happy with how things have gone there so far, as he is the best part of a 10th quicker than this man, Jack Giles, back up there once again. It's McLaren 720S Evo, the car that, of course, introduced in 2023 to replace McLaren's first formal foray into GT3 racing, the dedicated McLaren 720S machine. And right now, Jack Giles making his way up through the corners here and weaving his way around. And one of the cars that's not normally known for its cornering ability rather than straight line speed, so I suspect he'll have taken all the rear wing off of that McLaren and extended the gear stack as much as humanly possible. but Jack's not quite been up there for some time in qualifying. And then your third fastest at the moment if you go from 8th to 9th overall, and then skip over the 3 Premier drivers of Connor Pink, Robin Aston, Ross Wheatley. You get to this man, Joshua Downing, and well, the Type 2 Racing driver will be hoping that he can definitely get himself right up there and into the thick of the fighting for the win today. Indeed, the last time he took a win was at Watkins Glen, the previous endurance race round. Albeit, of course, there was a little bit of a cloud over what happened between him and Mikhail Salkuni, and well, the two of them will find each other on the road right now, should they finish qualifying as they currently stand, because Salkuni is only the best part there of what is a 10th behind Downing, and they will be lined up together on row number 7 overall. As we do see the print for Ross Wheatley, well, the Dave Collier Motorsport driver, or DC Motorsport driver there, well, he's made his way, or Duke Collier, let me say, not Dave, goodness me, Dave Collier. Then we do have Peter Duke, of course, Eddie names on the brain, but it's Ross Wheatley who's moved up there into 10th place off camera, as we're looking at Mikhail Salkuni as he makes his way on through, and also Michael Rhodes has made his way in the pit lane, having moved up to 5th place in clubs. There's still plenty of improvement out there for your club drivers, but one thing we'll do right now is we'll say hello to a few of you in the YouTube chat, of course, because we do these broadcasts for you guys and girls tuning in at home, and it wouldn't be right if we didn't say hello, including to none other than what is Patrick 48. I do believe I've got his surname right now. He does race our Transatlantic Trophy, and good to see Patrick tuned in. And indeed, hello there, Patrick. Long time no see, as you say. Only saw you yesterday, and I hope you're doing well, good sir. That's a good position from Andy Chell currently. Speaking of which, he's currently 12th fastest in the club class and 28th overall. He is following his teammate Simon Hunt on the round, and right now he's the quicker of the two of the Aston Martin drivers of Quatermass Motorsport, but of course in the club class. We also do say hello to Vault 9. C5B said, okay, here we go. And indeed, here we go, Vault 9, like you say. And we also do say hello to K-Teams there, cheering on the Verano Esports drivers, as per usual. Wouldn't be a Verano Esports team out there if you didn't have KT supporting them and giving them all her best wishes. And hope you're doing well, KT. We also do say hello to the Verano Esports official accounts there. And very happy to see you tuned in. And we also do say hello there to Sarah, who's cheering on Josh. Now, I get the feeling that's probably going to be Joshua Downing, although feel free to correct us. It could be Josh Holmes, to be fair. We do have multiple Joshes and Joshuas out there, as we do see the Yorkshire Tea Machine making its way on down in towards turn number 5. And well, he's making me want to go put the kettle on right now, but I will not do it, ladies and gentlemen. I will not give in to my urges of going to boil the kettle, alternatively break open the teapot. Indeed, right now, as it's boiling hot in here, so hot in fact you could melt a chocolate teapot in this commentary booth. Well, we see the 221 Mercedes driver here looking quite respectable in 8th place in club and 20th overall. Could be, of course, if one of his best qualifying performances of the season. But the next big question is, who perhaps do we not have here today? We don't have Dean Cheeseby, as we said earlier, because he is on holiday, but I do believe tuning in. And we also do have the absence of Jordan Butler in the Premier class alongside Dean Cheeseby. Both drivers on holiday, and Jordan Butler will be back as of round number 6. We believe Cheeseby will be as well. Now, we have no penalties coming into this round. We do have a few licence points that have been given to several drivers, but nobody has crossed the threshold for a drive-through penalty or anything more serious than that, as we do see Barry Wenman yet to get a lap on the board. He's currently none other than what would be classified as 44th in this qualifying session, so he's got a bit more work to do. Scott Kostrich, meanwhile, he makes his way towards the line. He's currently the lowest placed driver without a lap. He would be 45th of the starters should we go green flag. And as he makes his way across the line, well, he disappears and reappears. And he's going so quick there that we have to try and catch up with him. And that puts him 36th. That's going to be 21st in Premier and 36th overall. A bit more work to do there for the GPX Supersport driver, and indeed a bit of discontinuity with regards to his connection, perhaps. As Liam Fraser comes into the pit lane, as I look at my content booth window, well, are there any surprises out there right now? Drivers who are perhaps not performing as well as they should be, or drivers who are doing exceptionally well. Well, here's one for you. There's a Scuderia GPX car of Hussein Sarkadesla, who right now is currently full fastest. He could be, of course, his best qualified performance of the season. Now, it's Ferrari 296. It's definitely going to be a very interesting car. This will be a dark horse here at Road America, because the Ferrari, as we always say, is a car which is a bit of a jack of all trades, an all-rounder, if you will, for a mid-engine rear-wheel drive car. Good through the corners, but also, contrary to most of the mid-engine rear-wheel drive or the rear-engine rear-wheel drive cars, it is also quite quick on the straights. But that comes with a caveat, and that is that this car is very quick up to 4th gear. 5th gear, meanwhile, is a very long gear, and 6th gear you never want to touch, just because it is so long, and really you get your acceleration on the straights in 5th gear, and you only go to 6th gear if you run out of revs. And therefore, you can imagine right now that what it really means to the Ferrari drivers, in clear air, they're going to be a little bit slow on the straights. Put them in a draft, however, down the start-finish straight, or 30 the run down towards turn number 5. we will see the Ferraris become dangerously quick into those braking zones, to the point that they will be able to attempt dive bombs into the corner just simply because the car will have such a speed advantage. And indeed, will be able to take the fight to the likes of the Ford Mustang and the Mercedes AMG Evo, as well as the BMW M4. So, Sarka Dessler right now, he'll be hoping that he can stay on the second row, but he won't if he makes a mistake like that, as Govin Suresh decides to eject himself out stage right then the rear of the picture. So both drivers get things a bit wrong. Suresh makes his way back on the road, the Chaps Motorsport driver there, and he brings his way back on. I think just carried a bit too much speed into the corner. That's going to validate lap, now to gather up his things and get going once again. But in terms of surprise from Sarka Dessler in Premier and overall, who else is bringing some surprises out there? Perhaps a negative surprise, you would say, in the form of none other. And then what would be a driver a long way down the order right now, not where he wants to be whatsoever. And well, as soon as I say that he does improve, it's got Kostic, one of them. He moves up to 28th now, 203.705. But another driver who's having difficulty still is Barry Wenman, 38th at the moment. This is not the way he wants it to go. 22nd in Premier, and things are not clicking together whatsoever for the man. Makes way through the corners, but we've still got a bit more work to do potentially, as we also do see a bit of difficulty out there for none other than the machining of Rachel Hugh on home soil for the car, the Corvette Z06 GT3R for the C8 Stingray edition of the Corvette. But right now she makes her way around there, and well, still finding a bit more time for Blue Sky Esports, currently 36 overall and 15th in the club class. Normally we expect Rachel to be pushing just towards the top 10, but again, this Corvette we do know is one of those cars which does favour circuits that have a variety of features rather than being more leaning towards, say, power or leaning more towards technicality. And well, this is definitely a bit more of a hardcore power circuit. But one thing we have not done is brought you an on-board lap with one of our drivers. And well, how about we bring you an on-board lap where a driver is about to make his way onto one. It's Michael Rhodes, championship leader in the club class, as he heads towards the timing line. So, making his way across the timeline to go on to what for him will be his 8th flying lap in qualifying in 5th gear currently. You can see they're holding off, going up into 6th gear for as long as possible as he gets ready to make his way into the brakes for turn number 1. Braking there, about 100 metres from corner apex, using the cones on the left-hand side for a marker. As he makes about the corner now, coming through the kicker 2 and down towards turn number 3. Here, much sharper on the brakes, braking about 130 metres from corner apex, and decides to go for a nice and early apex. Then takes way too much apex curve, however, gets caught out by that, but he will carry on. You want a later apex typically, also, so you're going to mount the apex by an early one. You need to get onto that curve and get it to rotate the car, but rotated in too early for the corner. So as he makes way down towards turn number 5, he's got to make amends now as he gets ready to go onto the brakes, going all the way down the gearbox, about 150 metres away into the sharp 90-degree left-hander at turn number 5. Now into the middle sector, this is where all the corners will start to flow very rapidly. Braking underneath the Corvette bridge, into turn number 6, you can't see the corner until you come off the brakes, and as he makes way out to the left-hander using all the exit curve, he goes in towards turn number 7. Here it'll just be a lift and coast off the throttle. Some drivers will try and go flat out through there, depending on the car and the setup, and now he comes down in towards turn number 8, onto the brakes, about 130 metres from corner apex, down to second gear, using the draft meanwhile of the Quackmaster Motorsport car in front of him to help him out. I do believe that's the car of Andy Chell that he's following around. Going through the carousel now, and well, a bit of understeer there creeps in, but you can V-shape off the corner, you can go for a double apex, or you can go for a singular elongated apex. Rhodes going there for the V-shape, the double, as he now makes his way in towards the kick. Completely flat out here, even with the dirty of the Aston Martin in front. And well, light car and full aero on, as he makes his way now up towards what will be Canada corner. Getting ready for the right hand that really denotes the final sector lap, braking his way 120 metres away from the corner apex, mounts the curve beautifully there, so a lovely line from Rhodes in this latter half a lap so far, as he makes way out for returns 13 to 13A, the blind rise chicane. Oh, and that goes very sideways there for Andy Chell, so Rhodes won't have a draft to the end of the lap, so that's not going to help him at the end, as he makes way through turn number 14, a very tricky corner. It looks quite smooth, but it's got a big bump in the road in the braking zone, which can upset the rear balance of the car. Rhodes heads towards the line, and well, with the mistake at the start, it's definitely cost him time, and Rhodes in it is not going to improve as we understand it. Will stay 7th in the club class and 18th overall thus far. Now, Liam Fraser is out of the car. He has improved, in fact, to get 4 attempts clear of Menno Bloem. And, well, we thought it was going to be a lot closer, but Liam Fraser suddenly said, I'll do what I did at VIR, but I'll do it even more. And, well, 4 attempts, an absolutely staggering gap. But for Bloem, all he's got to think to himself right now is get a good start. Can he potentially get the lead into turn 1, like he tried to at VIR? And perhaps this time, spring the better launch. We will have to see. As we do have an improvement for Connor Pink. Good effort from him in the Marlboro McLaren as he makes his way on around right now. Of course, Marlboro, the tobacco brand, very prominent, of course, on the late 80s into 90s. McLaren machines of Formula 1, and also a big feature on the Ferraris of the early noughties until the tobacco advertising ban was brought into effect in the mid-noughties for Formula 1, indeed for a variety of international motorsports, given the 18-rated nature of cigarette products and the fact they're considered to be harmful to individuals' health. But as we do see Connor Pink make his way on down right now, well, the only thing harmful to his health would be a big mistake here, because right now currently 9th fastest and on course for a very good qualifying performance, 8th in Premier. That would be a season best if he keeps this together. As Scott Kostrich improves again off camera, now moving up to 12th place, so Kostrich is finding the time out there. It's just taking him some time to get there. But meanwhile, the lowest placed of your Premier drivers, and this is a bit of a shock, Gianluca Rospo, the man who's typically had a lot of fun battling with the likes of Govind Suresh, amongst others. Well, today he might find himself battling more with club drivers here, down in 40th place at 24th in Premier, but understandably, still some time out there. No qualifying lap set by Andy Ridley or Peter Armstrong. Something tells me they may both be opting to start from what will be the back of the field and just see what happens at the start. There's always some logic in that, particularly if you're a less experienced driver or perhaps not as confident on your pace compared to others. Sometimes starting from the back and picking up the pieces is a good way to learn, and also it's a good way to get some good results there, because you can just gradually make your way forward and build up the pace as you go. We're definitely coming to the thick end of this qualifying session. Another driver who's struggled a bit out there, Paul Mayer. This is not what we normally expect him, down in 38th. And of course, Road America, given its power circuit nature and the fact it's a very popular circuit on the iRacing simulator platform, it does mean it's one of those circuits that could bring out some anomalous results from some drivers, but you may see some Road America specialists really come to the foray. As we do have both Simon Hunt and Ross Gillett both picking up the yellow flags for track limits, and both making their way into the pit lanes. They're going no further for this qualifying session. It's when the dying laps are qualifying, and well, as we do come into them, we're going to see one more attempt here from a driver, and it's going to be Hussein Sarakadesta coming on through. Indeed, a few other drivers who's having one last gasp at this, but if we don't want to bring another on board lap, we've had one with a Ferrari. We're not going to get two with a Ferrari because that would be a little bit biased towards the Italian Stallions, but we will, I think, get a lap with one of our other cars out there. Speaking of which, here comes Ellen Olsen as she makes her way across the timeline for a final flying lap in the Porsche 992. And so right now, as our Premier driver makes her way across, up into 10th place there for 202.893. Can she go even higher? Going in towards that opening braking zone, braking at the 2 cone. As she makes her way through, taking plenty of curve there. Lovely line. This Porsche will all be about momentum and what wing they've been able to shave off for the straights. Breaking away now in towards turn number 3, using the later braking potential of the Porsche. Lovely line there through turn number 3. That's the curb you want. You want to get on that curb about 60% of the way through and then push the car over the curb and then load up the rear left tyre and just force the throttle down. But she makes her way onwards now, following the draft there of a car in front. Oh, I do believe that's one of our club drivers. Now making the way over to the right-hand side, braking for what would be turn number 5. And here, very late on the brakes, lead into the ABS as much as possible. Now coming out to the corner, heading up the rise and in towards turn number 6. Here, this is Porsche territory. These are the twiddly corners where the Porsche should be the best, given the fact it's rear-engine rear-wheel drive. And now making the way from the left in towards right here. And as she comes through, just a small lift there in 4th gear, no more than that. And getting ready to come down in towards the braking zone of turn number 8. She follows Marcus Clayton into the braking zone. Of course, that will extend the braking a little bit as Clayton goes slightly deep, but also not getting too close. And well, she may end up catching Clayton towards Canada corner, but we will see as she makes her way in towards the carousel. And I like the line that Olsen's taking here. She's actually got a bit deeper into turn 9, so that way she gets a slingshot at turn number 10. She will cost herself a 10th, but she'll get it back in the draft here as she makes her way to the keep. This is to make sure she doesn't catch Clayton too soon. I really like the logic that's being shown here by the Fidelity V Racing driver as she makes her way out the kink and now up towards Canada corner. And we're getting ready for the brakes here. Top gear, that engine absolutely screaming as she breaks her way down from 164 miles an hour. My goodness, as late as possible on the brakes there. And now making her way up towards turns 13 and 13A, right into left. Checker flag out this qualifying session, so last lap's definitely being queued up now. And we'll come in towards turn number 14, onto the brakes once again. Cole weaving around there in the braking zone as she makes her way out of 14, gets a good exit. Had a really good first half of lap. Of course, that backing off through the carousel has hurt a little bit, but what's it going to be for Olsen here? She tucks into the draft of Clayton as much as possible, knowing that every thousand will matter here. And she crosses the line. Does she improve from what is now 12th place? The answer is she goes to a length of 202.819. Could have potentially been a 202.7 if not for that slight lift off at the carousel, but it had to be done there to gain some time elsewhere in the lap. But Olsen will be starting 11th, one of our better qualifying performances, and where it's a top 11 all of Premier drivers. And well done to all for doing so. As Mikhail Salkuni, meanwhile, Make his way on around. Well, he's cooling on down here. But whether any late changes, we'll know, because Rhino Esports, while Salcuni has made his way back to 4th in club, he'll be happy with that, given how the form has been recently. It is a maiden pole position in the club class, meanwhile, for Michael Lecco for LS Racing. And, well, Lecco will be very happy with that, with Jack Giles 2 places behind. You see parts up of the pit lane there. And then we do see Joshua Downey, meanwhile, only a further, what was 18 thousandths behind, taking 3rd in the club class with Salcuni. Salcuni 2.5 tenths away. In fact, 3 tenths away almost, ahead of Rob Gregg, Danny Weir and Michael Rhodes. But at the very top is going to be overall and premier pole position for Liam Fraser, with Menno Bloem 4 tenths behind, and a further attempt to Eddie Theobold, where he season best 3rd place in qualifying. It's the 2 BMWs 2nd and 3rd, and they are the fill-in in amongst the Ford Mustang sandwich. Did I need to make sure I refer to the inside of the sandwich material there as the filling, not the sandwich itself? Thank you to those who pointed that out in the previous broadcast. And well, all the drivers absolutely set to go, because James Hurst starting in that 4th place. We look to the scenic view, and a lovely view here today. And well, this circuit located, of course, near the Kettle Moraine Scenic Drive, one of the most scenic parts of the United States, America, and Road America. Definitely pictured itself up there for a roar through the countryside. And while the birds and the wildlife may not appreciate it, but we appreciate the sound of engines in their natural habitat, and that is out on the racing circuit. Qualifying is complete, and we now make our way into the 5-minute warm-up session. And so, as our drivers now make their way into the world there, some astute observations from none of you, including none other than the Rhino Esports account, saying looks as though track getting warmer, causing lap times to drop off. And there is a natural temperature, and that's a really good point, to be fair, that as track temperature rises, it will get to a certain point, a certain peak, and then it will start to see the track times fall away. Humidity is also a big part, and goodness me, is it humid here today. 78% humidity, and well, an ambient of 90 degrees centigrade, track currently at 20 degrees centigrade, but it will have cooled down compared to qualifying, given we have had a bit of time. But definitely right now, it is warm out there in terms of how it feels in the car and how it feels on the track with that partial cloud. And we do see Menno Bloem making his way along. But as we do, well, we do have a bit of time in this warm-up session here to talk about some of the other things that you guys and girls have been saying in the YouTube chat, including none other than Sarah confirming it's Josh Holmes that they're cheering on. And thank you for confirming there, Sarah. Glad we did decide to also focus the camera a little bit on the Yorkshire T driver. We also do say hello there to FTMG52, who's cheering on the MRC lads, that being the Moonshine's Racing Club Lives, not to be confused with the MRC Endurance team that has returned to the grid for the purposes of the Transatlantic Trophy that will be every second Wednesday as well. Goodness me, I've got to make sure I can juggle all these teams correctly in my mind. We also do say hello. That's all about the gyro, none other than Dr. Dwayne Hoffman, the mathematician, and also, of course, Season 2 Club GT3 champion here at SimRacing International. So I'm quite happy with both validity cars. We are deploying an alternate strategy. It'll be interesting to see how that goes. Particularly for Ellen Olsen, starting in 11th place there. What can she do? Can she make her way into the top 10, perhaps even chase a top 5 overall and in the Premier class? We also do say hello to JT Blitz there, who's saying, I'll take 26th place. I did a good effort from yourself, sir, no doubt about it. And all of our drivers almost ready to go. As Patrick48 says, 24 degrees right now in room. And indeed, it is a bit warm, no doubt about it. And also a question being asked there by Rhino Esports, more of a statement, but it could also form a question, which is, I've never understood why we found 3A and 4 as corners at this circuit, and I'm not 100% sure myself, to be honest. It's one of those peculiarities. Some American circuits, you do have small kinks, which become corner numbers. And you do, of course, have the run of turn 2, and then you have 3A and 4 before you do get to the left-hand 90-degree corner, turn number 5. It's also the same here as Gavin Corby makes his way out of the kink, which is turn 11. Then you have 11A, which is this kink here. Then you have 11B, which is the small left-hander he goes through here, completely flat out, should be reminded. And then to Canada corner, a turn number 12. And if anybody does know the answer to that, the official reason, feel free to let us know, because so I do need to do a bit more research on. I'm not too familiar about it. As he makes his way on through, we do see Andy Chell there checking in. Hello to you, Andy. Saying didn't quite go to plan in qualified. Let's see how the race turns out. Indeed, it's going to be a long race, to be fair. And, well, we do have 90 minutes on the clock. Now, it has been some time since we had a 90-minute race, so let's fill you in a little bit on the big observations, as we do observe Ross Gillett make his way around, the Welshman. Good to see him back once again. He's been in 4. What were the big headlines from Watkins Glen strategy-wise? Well, firstly, remember, this season, fuel is done before tyres, not at the same time anymore. And we did see at Watkins Glen, those who only went for fuel, they gained a lot of time initially, but they started to lose time towards the end of the race. But the strategy, as Menno Bloem demonstrated in that absolutely brilliant freeway fight between himself, Liam Fraser, and Dean Sheesby, it was to just take fuel on the day. You didn't need to take the tyres. Meanwhile, Liam Fraser changed all 4 tyres, and he was blisteringly quick towards the end of the race, but it wasn't a long enough race at Watkins Glen in order for him to be able to make the most out of it. Now, here at Road America, it's still a 90-minute race, but this circuit have a very different level of tyre degradation. We do have a lot of corners where you're leaning quite heavily on the tyres, so potentially changing 2 tyres, that would be the left-hand side tyres, because you've got more right-handers than left-handers, given the fact that this is, at the end of the day, a clockwise circuit, so that it always is going to end up turning right to go back to where you start. Changing 2 tyres, the left-hand side ones, could be an interesting prospect. I don't think we're going to see anybody go for all 4 tyres, although you never know, to be fair, and also fuel save is going to be important, so I suspect a lot of drivers will really be fuel saving to extend that opening stint and, of course, try to push for the 1 stop. If you can get away, we're not having to make a second stop. You are saving a huge amount of time, because this is one of the longest pit lanes in the world in terms of the amount of time you spend on the limiter. You will be looking at pit stops that are pushing upwards of a minute, particularly when we start to see tyres be changed end to end, and well, that is going to make or break a race or 2. But as we also do look further around, we do have Gianluca Rospo right now, weaving his way down the straight there. That's the run from turn 3 towards 5, and we won't be able to do that weaving on the racer course, given the fact they'll all become charging down through there. It's going to be a very crowded run in towards the opening couple of corners, we can definitely tell you that. But if all drivers absolutely ready to go, well, ladies and gents, we're all set to go here at the quality booth, no doubt about it. And, well, I think James Howarth is all ready to go as he sets the fastest time in the warm-up session, but that's going to mean very little. It's now going to mean a lot when he goes out into the circuit to see if he can take the win here today, period overall. But who will do so, and who will take the club win? Well, let's find out, ladies and gentlemen. It is time for round number 5 here at Road America in the SimRacing International Thursday GT3 Championship Season 13, and you're watching Split B as they head to the grid. And as the drivers do make their way onto the grid, this is how they'll all line up for a one and only race here in the US state of Wisconsin. In its pole position, back-to-back pole positions for Liam Fraser for MRC Bootleggers, and we're taking that pole in the end by 4 attempts. It will feel like deja vu for VIR. However, joining him on the front row of the grid, Menno Bloem for SimRacing Team Lowlands. 9, there's 8 points between the two of them in the championship, and this could be a round that really makes a difference. Starting third, it's Eddie Theobold, the privateer, with season best qualifying points. He threads the needle into that position. He was a 10th behind Bloem, but could he potentially be going for the win today? James Hurst starts in 4th place with Dexterous Motorsport Cyan, only a 100th behind, but in turn only what is 4 thousandths ahead of the Ferrari Hussein Sarkadessa. He's going to be a bit of a wild card here. What can the Scuderia GPX driver do for the 3rd row? Connor Pink as well, late improvement, put himself 6th place there, his best qualifying points of the season alongside Sarkadessa. Well done to both of them. And Scott Kostrich threaded himself into the mix there, 7th place after a slow start in qualifying, but the GPX Sport Zedon try to improve him. Alongside the Scotsman will be the Englishman John Ludbrett for GPX Sport Zedon, his teammates, the team looking very strong, and complete that top 10. It's going to be Ross Wheatley for DC Motorsport and Clyde Vella for GPX Sport Zedon. Then outside the top 10, in 11th, it's going to be Ellen Olsen with a very strong qualifying performance there from the Dutchman, and we should be very happy with that for Validity TV Racing. And then we do have Michael Lecker there for Ellis Racing 2, the Czechia driver with his maiden club pole position. But he's going to be followed up there by Barry Wenman first in the Premier Class, of Dexterous Motorsports Magenta, and then more relevantly to the Czechia driver, it will be Jack Giles, second of your club drivers for Euro Titans Endurance Pink. But will it be pink for him, or will it be black and red? Because Type 2 Racing's Joshua Downing returning to 3rd place in the club qualifying performances, and can he potentially spring a surprise there and make his way forward? That'll be his target. From him, it'll be Robin Aston starting 16th for 5M Racing. And then we do have in 17th Daniel Mellor for 5M Racing, teammate behind Aston, but ahead of Verona Esports' Mikhail Salcuni, having a decent qualifying performance of his own, and he'll be hoping that he can potentially move forward to that 9th row. Rob Gregg for MLC Rebels and Danny Weir for Dexterous Motorsport Sign complete your top 20, and outside the top 20, 21st on the grid, Michael Rowe, championship leader in the club class, not the way he's waited to go for Darkwing Racing, however, it's a long race, and his consistency could prove very valuable. Govind Suresh, a decent qualifying performance for him, one of his better ones of the season. The Chaps Motorsport driver there starts in 22nd place. And then we do see Matthew Massey for Spectra Racing in 23rd. Ashley Shucksmith starts 24th there for MRC Bootleggers. And well, the British driver there's going to have some hard work ahead of him if he wants to try and make a miraculous run through this time, particularly after his previous performances, of course, proved to be absolutely stellar. But he started from 7th of VIR to go 3rd, and then it was 2nd. But what can he do here today? Started all the way down outside of the top 5 of the class. Well, he's going to have the company behind him, Rob Mackay for Dexterous Motorsport Cyan, and Joshua Holmes there for Team Yorkshire T. And as he tries to put the kettle on and get this race on the boil. Well, meanwhile, we'll do see none other than Dave Collier for DC Motorsport starting 27th. The Irishman will be joined on the 14th row by fellow Premier driver Martin Kenyon for Dexterous Motorsports Magenta. And then we will have Ryan Abbott starting 29th for Team Noobish ahead of James Fraser for MRC Bootleggers, the brother of Liam Fraser, of course, and starting 30th there, or what translates into the back end of the top 10 of the club cars, but he can make some steady progress. Then we do see outside of the top 30, it's going to be Simon Hunt, 31st for Quackmaster Motorsport, with Ross Gillett, 32nd. That's an all club row. And then behind them, James Bostock for Scuderia GPX, head of Pete Paver for LS Racing 1, with the Brazilian driver having a lot of work to do here. Then we do have Marcus Clayton for Rhino Esports starting 35th, the American on home soil, not qualifying well, but what can you do over the race distance, with Rachel Hugh for Blue Sky Esports 36th. And it's going to be Andy Chell, 37th for Quackmaster Motorsport, ahead of Gianluca Rospo for Deep Motorsport. He's down the order in qualifying, and behind him will be the Czechia driver of Peter Florian, and also Paul Mayer, the German for LS Racing 2, completing the top 40. Now outside the top 40 on the final three rows, it's going to be Max Dean, 41st for Gav Max Racing, just ahead of Martin Brandon for Axis and Sport Sim Works, and then Brandon's going to be the fill-in there in the Gav Max Racing sandwich, because Gavin Corby starts 43rd, with Andy Rooney not setting the time in qualifying, starting 44th, and Peter Armstrong for Ghost Squadron Motorsport brings up the rear of the field in 45th place. Although I'm hearing in my ear, ladies and gentlemen, we have had Andy Rooney up to start from the pit lane, and also the same for Mikhail Salcuni, and Matthew Massey has had technical issues with the car. We may not be seeing Massey on the grid for this one, which is so that's going to be a sad absence, no doubt about it. But intriguingly there, Mikhail Salcuni having to start from the pit lane for some reason. Well, with that is definitely going to scupper his chances of trying to make it a win here today, unless he can pull off a miracle, and it will be a last to first challenge. We'll have to wait and see what it's going to be. As we do say hello to Denny Ploger there, tuning in from holiday. Well, I hope you're having a good time on the holiday, Denny, and I do believe your missus is Chantal. I hope you're both in absolutely brilliant health. And we're cheering on the team, and particularly cheering on Rob there. That's been Rob Gregg. We also say hello to Mark Kent, 94. Good evening to you, Mark. And also there, we do see FTMG cheering on Denny Ploger and saying how much he misses it. But we are not going to miss a moment in this racing, ladies and gents, because the field makes its way up through the last couple of corners here. It's a long formation lap here at Road America. It gives us just enough time to cover the entire grid and tell a few stories. But right now, whose story is going to be published into the annals of SimRacing International here at Road America? Because in round number 5, somebody's got to win this endurance race. But will it be Liam Fraser? Will it be Menno Bloem? Or will it be somebody else entirely? Well, here we go as the field makes its way up the rise. And it is over to Liam Fraser to get us underway for 90 minutes of racing action. And it is go, go, go for the 5th time this season for Split B as Menno Bloem gets a better start. He inches slightly ahead. But here comes Liam Fraser now. The power of that Ford Mustang not to be underestimated. But Menno Bloem there, you could see what he was trying to do. He was literally going down even into the opening corner. And here they go. Bit of contact between the two, but both drivers make the way through safely. Hussein Selkades and John Lundbrook there, both making forward. Scott Koshich trying to get on the push. As we do see the rest of the field now making its way over the rise. Joshua Downing attacking Danny Weir. Danny Weir already up 3 places in class, given the fact he has gained some as a result of retirement. Well, not retirements, but trips to the pit lane for some drives. But at the same time as well, still some work to be done. As meanwhile, Simon Hunt battling with James Fraser. But all of our drivers safely through the opening few corners, which is wonderful to see. But as we look back to the front of the field, look at Liam Fraser already bolting away there at turn number 3. And Menno Bloem being dropped to a degree as we are Eddie Theobold and James Howarth together. And Theobold right now trying to get himself up to speed. But the rear of the car, let's go. James Howarth goes around with him. And as Howarth tries to come back on the road, he rejoins. A couple of other drivers coming loose there. But everyone does start to make their way safely through turn number 5. And well, could be a bit of a nightmare. There's been a bit of a check-up. Rachel Hugh having to put the brakes on there. Not quite sure what's happened to Rachel, but she's had to come to a stop. So a bit of disaster. We will get a replay of that a bit later on. But meanwhile, the whole field now starts to settle down in single file formation, well, at least in terms of your top 5. But look at Ellen Olsen here, looking for a cheeky move on the inside of Ross Wheatley. Doesn't quite work out as Barry Wedman is minus the front bumper. Don't know where that's gone. Answer on the postcard, but we'll try and find out with a replay when we can. All these drivers right now going through the carousel, and Olsen up place already, and 2 places up in what will be the Premier Class. Because Michael Lecco, your club pole sitter right now, all the way from 12th to 8th place. Yeah, let's race the 2 driver. Well, he's in a bit of a hurry here. I think he's got a bus to catch the rate he's going. But meanwhile, to wait and see how far he will go as the time goes on. As looking back to the kink, we do see that Daniel Mellor just hold off Dave Collier trying to look for a move, and Ryan Abbott and Josh Holmes together. Well, with Josh Holmes, they're going a bit wide. The Team Noobish driver, well, he's going to pull away there as Holmes now has to go a bit defensive. Martin Kenyon, the Team Yorkshire T driver, well, gets ready to put the brakes on very hard. Kenyon looks up the inside, 3 wide almost there as Gianluca Rospo goes all in. Meanwhile, that's a touch of the grass there for James Fraser. Gianluca Rospo takes the place on Kenyon. That'll be for 18th in Premier. Good move from him, but as all the field segues its way up the hill through turn 13, we do see that Andy Chell find himself under pressure from Eddie Theobold, who's trying to recover his way into this race after his turn 5 incident. But right now, they all come to the breaking zone. A lot of dust being kicked up there. That's to be expected to use all the tarmac, and particularly the areas that are not normally used. And we've got cars into the pit lane. Robin Aston and Daniel Mello both in. Now, not quite sure the reasons for that. We don't have anything to explain. The only thing I can imagine is they've perhaps got damage to their cars. But either way, we'll have to find out. Or they've got the wrong setup on the car. But as all drives roar the way onwards, well, right now it's been an absolutely brilliant open lap and more are to come. And we're already Pete Paver looking for a potential move here versus Simon Hunt. It's not going to work out as Eddie Theobold trying to go around the outside of Andy Chell. But Chell again gets his elbows out and says to the British driver, no can do, good sir, you're going to need to sit behind. But Theobold's not going to take that as Chell goes defensive there. And Chell right now doesn't want to let Marcus Clayton or Paul Mayer get any closer. That's his worry, particularly Marcus Clayton, fellow club driver. But as the whole lead group make the way out of turn number 5, well, Liam Fraser is already 1.2 seconds ahead of Menno Bloem, but it's 1.3 to Connor Peake. And how about this for the private teams? Picked up the pieces, which were dropped by Howarth and also Theobold. And since then, right now into third, trying to pull away from Sarkadesta. But remember, this is a very strategic race. 90 minutes of racing action. And again, this could be a one-stop, it could be a two-stop. We'll have to see what happens. And tyre management is also going to be key. So just because you have some runaway leaders right now, doesn't mean it's not going to be interesting later on. This could be a race that's won with big brains rather than big brawn. But meanwhile, we come back to Rob Mackay, who's looking for a move here. Joshua Downing trying to make his way past the 6th place club driver. Downing slipped down the field indeed. What's happened to Downing? It's not quite gone right. If everything's going a bit backwards at the moment, we'll try and find out when we can. As all drivers make the way on through, a bit more to come. Max Steed a bit further back, still fighting there with Pete Paver. Both drivers made some ground as we ride aboard with your 33 driver, with the position 33 driver. 292 is the car, and the Gav Max racing driver right now, looking for a potential move for 12th place in the club class. Oh, that's the driver wide, and that's going to be Paul Mayer rejoining as D goes the inside into the kick. That's brave, that's bold. Oh, goodness me, and that's disaster for Marcus Clayton, who carries way too much speed through the kick. And in the end, I think he was caught out there by the fact that he did see what's the car of Max Dean going very defensive, or offensive in fact, in towards the kick. And if we can go around the outside to discover the aero wash there and the speed he was trying to carry, that was never going to work. And we'll Clayton there, definitely see the front left hand side of the car being rubbed off a bit with the barrier, but thankfully not getting entrenched with the barrier. It could have been far, far worse than that. But indeed it was not. But meanwhile, oh, that's the gravel trap there for turn 14 for James Fraser. The MLC bootleggers driver make his way back on, flashes headlights at somebody, not quite sure who, but that's Morse code for what will be some obscenities. And right now he's got to get his head down and carry on as he makes his way on to his third tour of the circuit under race conditions. But as he does so, he's going to lose a lot of straight line speed here and lose out versus Petter Florian and Martin Brandon potentially, or Willie. No, Paul Mayer will be the one to get through, the last of them to do so. And Petter Florian B1 does not find his way through, sits behind instead. And well, in fact, Fraser there dives back around the outside of Paul Mayer minus the front bumper, and well, I don't think that's helping Mayer's car whatsoever. But as all the way make the way through. Eddie Theobold right now ahead of Ross Gillett, and Gillett staying with him. Has a good start there. Eddie Theobold still recovering places out to 28th. And well, only 5 minutes into this one, already making some ground. But oh, what's going on here? Too wide. That's going to be Joshua Downing going to go defence there versus Rob Mackay. Mackay trying to come through and actually shuts him down. Wants a piece of the pie. But is he going to be able to do so there? As Dave Collier would like to get past him. Goes up the inside there, and that's brave for the Irishman. Well, I would say bold, but was it brilliant? Not quite. He didn't quite pull it off there. And you see Rachel Hughes step to the side, and Rachel Hughes already a lap down. We're not quite sure what happened to Hugh at the start. We will get a replay of it. Dave Collier looking for another move here, and he's going to go for it, really trying to put the pressure on Ashley Shucksmith. This is for overall position, but for Collier it's worth more. It's worth chasing after Rob Mackay for what would be 13th place in the Premier Class. But here to come on around through the carousel, and the DC Motorsport Ferrari right now being made to wait instead. As they come charging onwards. Well, meanwhile, we're looking a bit further up the order to Danny Weir. And well, we can see there, Danny Weir under pressure from Jack Giles. We're gained all the places at the start. We're going from 6th to 2nd in the club class. Meanwhile, Jack Giles losing one by comparison. Here right now feeling a bit of pressure as meanwhile Lecco, as in Michael Lecco, has just completely run away. We show you the class positions. He's top 20 of both classes at this time, but there you can see Michael Lecco is 6.5 seconds almost clear of Danny Weir, as meanwhile Weir has got Giles Rhodes and Greg all kid up behind him right now and forming a proverbial train. But coming out to the final corner, it's gone to lap number 4. Well, Danny Weir, of course, will feel so on the straights at least. He hasn't quite got the pace. We do see a flash of the headlights there from Jack Giles. And I think that is Giles trying to say to Danny, look, I want to work with you. Don't worry about me fighting with you. This could all be part of the master plan there for Giles, which is to save the fuel for Eurotitan's endurance. But will Danny Weir play ball? Will he realise what's going on and perhaps think to himself, well, actually, in reality, I'm going to lose out here strategically because I can't save anywhere near as much fuel, even if I lift and coast. We do see Michael Rhodes there getting a little bit cheeky and peaky as he looks around the outside, going for turn number 3, but Rhodes can't find a way in. Well, he tries staying together for now as they roll down towards turn number 5. This is where the intrigue now starts to build. As you can imagine, all 4 drivers here, they'd like to gain place off each other, but do they gain them on the road, or do they wait for the pit stops? They're a long way away. Did we expect the pit stops to be somewhere around 40 to 50 minutes into this race? It was quite a narrow pit window for drivers going for a 1 stop, and therefore they've got a lot of fuel saved to go ahead. As they come on around, well, it's going to be a situation whereby for Danny Weir, he's going to be one who we have to make the first call whether he's coming into the pits or not. Everyone else will respond behind. But that's a long way away. As meanwhile, Liam Fraser has been caught up to by Menno Bloem. So as they make the way out of the carousel, well, I think there's been a bit of a mistake somewhere for Liam Fraser on this lap, because suddenly, well, he's definitely lost a lot of the time that he had previously gained. He hasn't had the mistake at the start of the lap, I can tell you that, looking at their sector times. Alternatively, Menno Bloem is just now pulling the wick out here and saying, well, watch this, I can go as quick as you, Liam, and I just need a bit of time to get myself set up. But either way, it's going to prove a bit interesting between these drivers as they make the way onwards. We can see Liam Fraser now definitely feeling some pressure. James Howarth as well, looking for a move here on Ellen Olsen, trying to recover another place that he lost at the start. Goes up the inside of Canada corner. Ellen there giving us much space as humanly possible. And, well, they will swap the place around for 9th in the Premier Class, and it's 10th overall. But Olsen there has other ideas. I suspect that her thought process is, I'm not going to fight with drivers who I know are a lot quicker than me. I'll let them go and just latch onto the back of them and let them pull me along. Also, we do know that Validity V Racing, with support from Full Tilt Virtual Motorsport, are running an alternate strategy today. And I suspect this is definitely going to be one of those strategies whereby they are thinking about the bigger picture and looking to extend that fuel tank as much as possible and protect the tyres. I wouldn't be surprised if they're going to simply take fuel, and that will be it, because we do know they like to go for a gamble, and when it works out, it can be some of the most spectacular gambles out there. But as Olsen makes his way through turn number 1, we take a look back in time, ladies and gentlemen. So the big moments in this race, including, of course, none other than the race start. So as we did go green flag racing, of course, all the field together, and, well, the pace car pulled away, and then suddenly Liam Fraser was left to dictate when we went green, and then we did go. And, well, you can see both our front row starters there equal at first, although Menno Bloem getting a slightly better launch. I think he was more looking to his right than straight forward, and then Liam Fraser coming back in the final 5 yards with the straight line speed advantage of the Ford Mustang. But in the end, it was Fraser was able to hold on to that as Eddie Theobold then went for the move, battling side by side a bit further back, and we saw him there in the 2 wide versus James Howarth as they made the way onwards. A bit further back as well, it was a good start for Michael Lecco, and Jack Giles, meanwhile, found himself surrounded by cars. But that was the run of the opening couple of corners. And then this happened for Eddie Theobold and James Howarth. So into the braking zone they went for what was turn number 5. Theobold on the inside, losing the rear of the car. James Howarth, unfortunately, a passenger in such a situation, trying to go around the outside. It did not work out. Well, what happened further behind was a big bit of difficulty for Rachel Hugh, and this was Rachel making her way down towards turn number 5, and as she did so, well, what exactly happened there under braking? The answer was, found herself in a 3-wide, oh, and there was a bit of a check-up there. Now, I think Rachel was trying to be quite conservative, but unfortunately got pranged by the car. I want to say that was Paul Mayer who hit Rachel on the rear there. What was this from Paul Mayer's perspective as he made his way down? I think we are on board the car. Yes, it was the Ellis Racing 2, and Hugh there being quite sensitive, and in the end, Mayer, I think, trying to carry a bit more speed in that inside line, but making the mistake of hitting the rear of Hugh's car, and it sent the two of them on a collision course. Gary Corby, meanwhile, he was third party to all that, and, well, it was for Gary Corby, the Gavin racing driver, got a bit wrong further back. Okay, he was coming into the braking zone here. What happened to him? Well, he went onto the brakes, so I think he's just going to completely check up, and in the complete stops the car, avoids hitting anyone, and everyone else does very well to do so. Not 9 was around the corner from Hugh and also Mayer. So well done. 10-1 for their evasive action there. And then we did have a bit of difficulty for Joshua Downing at the end of lap number 1. So this explains what happened to him. This was 2 wide with Danny Weir coming out of Canada corner, going into turns 13 and 13A. And on the outside there, he tried to take more road than was available, touched the grass, and the Type 2 race driver in the end made his way back on. You never want to touch the green stuff, and, well, to be fair to him, not that he planned to, but that's how he ended up falling behind Michael Rhodes just like that. And then we did have a bit of difficulty for Andy Chell a lap later. So on lap number 2, going down towards turn number 5, and the Equator Motorsport driver at the time, being pressured by Eddie Theobold, went for a huge send. Way too much speed there, and then he released the brake. Unfortunately, that's how he did lose the front bumper there of Pete Piper's car, and Andy Chell taking evasive action there. Well, well done to him for doing so. Unfortunately, caused a bit of damage to one of his rivals, but it could have been far, far worse, and did very well there to make sure he did not prang anybody. But we also had this for James Fraser. This was a rallycross excursion at turn 14, and what exactly happened to the MLC bootleggers driver? So he came out of 13 and 13A in the top class there, chasing after one of our GP6 for Ferraris, well to the brakes. Ooh, goodness me, the car pulled sharply left. Well, I wouldn't have expected that. That must be a real brake bias there. He's hit the bump in the road, and the car's very quickly snapped on him as so. But unfortunately for James Fraser, no doubt about it. And on lap number 4 just now, we had this Paul Mayer, which has brought his race to a halt. And well, this is the aftermath, so I think he's hit a barrier somewhere. I think that's at the kink. Can we get a bit of an earlier look at it? And here we go. And this was Paul Mayer for SimRacing 2, making his way out of turn number 5 up towards 6. And as he did so, already missing his front bumper after that instant earlier on at turn number 5 on the open lap, and went very wide there. And I think the car increased the uncontrollable state as we do come back to your live racing. And as we do, we've had some big moments so far, but as Ellen Olsen rejoins us on screen, well, James Herf has now dropped her and is now on the back of Ross Wheatley. And well, we're got to the end of the opening 15 minutes of this race. A long way still to go, however. Liam Fraser, by the way, has reopened his lead over Menno Bloem to the best part of 1.2 seconds. So it does seem to be evident flying between them, with Liam Fraser having a monster final sector. That was the best part of a tenth quicker by comparison. So that's where he's made up a bit of a delta. And as you see there, Ross Wheatley decided to let Howarth go, and I think playing the bigger picture game here, which is Howarth is a quicker driver. Why would I want to fight him at this point in time? And well, as he decides to play it smart, his teammate Dave Collier, meanwhile, doesn't have that opportunity because he's got to try and fight his way forward. Actually, Shucksmith is the target for 20th place. Well, Shucksmith right now, definitely, I think, trying to keep his head to the ground. We're hunting after Rob Mackay. They've been like this for some time. And Ryan Abbott's trying to get a bit close as well. But speaking of close moments, here is Max Dean, lead of the group of Simon Hunt, Andy Chell, Peter Armstrong and James Fraser. And credit where it's due to the Ghost Squadron Motorsport driver Peter Armstrong, one of our younger members of the grid, I do believe. Well, the Britain right now doing a fantastic job in what is 14th place in the club class, going all the way from 21st, right from the back of the grid. And right now, hoping to potentially take a top 10 here today if he can. And well, it'll be his first top 10 of the season, I believe. He'll be very happy with that. But we do see the Grandmaster Motorsport cars together. Simon Hunt and Andy Chell. Of course, remember, Andy was saying to us, with his great top 5 result at Spa-Francorchamps, he was hoping it could be a double top 5 for the team, whereby in the end it all went wrong for Hunt. But they're right together right now, and they will be working together. They'll have the overseer of Mike Barber on the pit wall, and also none other than would be Patrick 48. He'll be cheering them on as well, and they'll be trying to figure it out in terms of how they can really convert this into a big result and move them further up in the team championship. But there's a fly in the ointment here for somebody, because James Fraser tries to go around the outside of Peter Armstrong. Can't quite find that as we ride aboard the dashboard of the 239 Porsche. And going down into the braking zone, and as he makes his way through that left-hander, the MLC bootleggers driver definitely trying to channel a bit of his brother's energy here with regards to making a move happen. But the thing is, he's going to need a bit more than this, because it's a very tight field at the moment. He rolls through the corner of the carousel. Good line through there. Dirty Air definitely causes the car to struggle a little bit of understeer. Well, he has got the best part of the tow of 4 cars in front of him. As hold up the phone, and Max Dean decides to go on the inside there, Andy Chell in towards the kink. He gets that done, but here comes Peter Armstrong as well. And suddenly, they're braving it out of the scariest corner of the circuit, so much so it's making me stumble over my words. And as they come in towards Canada Bend, well, Peter Armstrong trying to come back here for the move on Max Dean. Does he get it done? It's great racing between them, and Andy Chell being shelled down the order here. And well, we can see Simon Hunt already open up a second gap as they come through turn number 13. Armstrong on the outside, Dean defending the inside, but it puts him on the outside for turn 14. 2 wide they come to the brakes, and Armstrong there hasn't got the confidence of the brakes, as we're going to see Chell trying to go around the outside. A small touch between the two of them. They get away with that. That'll be a 0x most likely. And here's James Fraser now trying to pick which horse to back as he makes his way down the start finish straight. He's going to pick Peter Armstrong there. He's now locked in. Armstrong just gradually outrunning Chell's Aston Martin. You can see the Ferrari having the slight legs, and Fraser right now wants to make it 3 wide. Here he goes in towards turn number 1. There's not much space. Onto the brakes they go. Chell on the outside. They're squeezing with Armstrong, and James Fraser backing out there before it was too late. Smart driving from James Fraser. I thought he was going to go all for it, but not quite in the end. But goodness me, what a battle between them and Martin Brandon's closed up to this. Andy Rooney's there as Rooney tucks up the inside of what is Peter Florian to make sure he can't get through. And right now these club drivers absolutely fighting incredibly hard, and we absolutely love it between them all, no doubt about it right now. And that's the thing, of course, in the Premier Club classes, it's not just about what's going on at the front, also further back you can expect excitement everywhere. As James Fraser thinks about going for a dive as Chell gets very close to the rear there of Armstrong's car, taps it on the rear, and the repercussions are it's the opposite and equal reaction force there that sends Chell's car a little bit sideways but gets it back together. And suddenly now we've got Martin Brandon up into 15th place in the club class at Chell's demise, with Andy Rooney followed him through as well as McLaren. Goodness me, what a set of battles between them, and it's not over yet, I suspect. But let's come back to the front for a brief moment. The overall leader right now and Premier leader of MLC Bootleggers is Liam Fraser. Makes his way down the start finish straight as he does so. 2.2 second gap to Menno Bloem. Gradually opening it there, and we do have a word from the pit wall and Moonshine's Racing Club. This is the bootleg version of it. The bootleggers, of course, saying that Liam was taking it easy, has been told to break the toe and is doing it. Not towing that SimRacing Team London's car along at all. They do not want Menno Bloem following him any more than they needed to. So therefore, it's all part of the plan now. Fraser has been told, give it everything, and we'll have to wait and see whether we can make a complete break or whether it will come back later on. Scott Kostrich, meanwhile, still putting the pressure on Clive Vella as Ross Wheatley tries to find a way past Michael Lecco for what will be 9th place overall. Still can't find it to the moment. We had a bit of drama further back, I believe, in the Chell Rooney Armstrong battle. We'll have to get a replay of that when we can. As Joshua Downing has dropped down the time out. No, he hasn't. It was a discontinuity for his connection. But into the pit lane, Eddie Theobold. Now, this is very early. Now, is this a sign of a reverse two-stop strategy here for Theobold? Because we haven't got any indication this is a black flag or a drive-through penalty. And if so, well, it is a big gamble, but we'll come back to that shortly. As James Fraser looking for the move here on Max Dean. We tried it earlier on a 3-wide, it didn't work. This time he does it in a 2-wide, but Max Dean on the outside here, and good on Max. Are really trying to play this, and James Fraser is not an easy driver to defend against. James is one of those drivers. He's an Ayrton Senna of the modern era of sim racing, which is, if there's a space, he is going for it. And now it's not the infamous quote, it's the simple thing, which is, I'm either coming past you or I'm coming through you. And Fraser there gets past Max Dean, but credit for Max Dean for really trying to hold his ground. But Fraser finds his way into 12th place of the club class now, and the RC bootleggers try and make his way onwards. So you can imagine that situation, but for Max Dean, I think, realising that given all the fighting that's gone, they've actually lost a lot of time to Simon Hunt, so is it worth continuing the fighting? And of course, it has brought Martin Brandon into the fray. Once it's brought him into the party, meanwhile, what's happening elsewhere, I hear you ask? We have had that instant, of course, for Armstrong and company, and here's a quick replay to explain what exactly has happened to the Ghost Squadron Motorsports car. So this was the man in Super 5 going through the kink, so close to being, hits the curb and the rear lets go. And unfortunately the car bouncing out down the ride height and comes sliding across the road. He's got the brakes on fully there. Credit to Armstrong, hold his brakes. And well, everyone did very well to react to that. 10 out of 10 for the reactions. This is what it looked like from Peter Florian's perspective. Now keep in mind that Armstrong is already around the corner. So Florian comes through. There he sees a load of smoke. He sees a car going across the road. And at this point throws it to the grass. Lifts off the throttle slightly, not fully. And Peter Florian there used that experience as a Premier driver to his advantage and to keep himself very much alive in this race. But huge moment. It could have been far, far worse. But thankfully it was not, as we head back to your live racing. And as we do, more race to come, no doubt about it, as Max Dean carries on. But meanwhile, let's come back to the question we were asking ourselves early on regarding Eddie Theobold as Barry Wenman in. Now, this will be for repair work to the car. This could also be for the reverse two-stop as well. Now, what is a reverse two-stop, I hear you ask? Well, if a driver is breaking this up into a two-stop race, we would expect the way this will play out is that essentially you will have a very long opening stint, you'll have a long second stint, and then you'll have a short final stint, so a splash and dash pit stop. One have the splash and dash pit stop first, and therefore you can potentially get that all out of the way and said and done. Alternatively, you decide essentially to have a short opening stint and therefore give yourself the opportunity to then make some ground. But speaking of making ground, James Howarth up the inside there, Scott Kostrich, and Kostrich disappears and reappears for the ether, still there, but Howarth does clear in brilliant battling as Clive Vella's picked up a yellow flag for track limit, so he's going to have to give some time back. I believe that was coming out to turn number 5, taking too much road into the corner or too much of it out of the corner, more likely into the corner because you have so much runoff area and you can abuse most of it, but go too close to the outside wall and it is dubbed as though you are being a little bit liberal with your track limits. But as the drivers make the way on the ground right now, well, everyone's doing a fantastic job out there in terms of battling, but James Howarth really moving on, making that move, and what should be pointed out as well, Ross Wheatley finding his way past Michael Lecco. That wasn't caught on camera, but here we'd go for a quick track back in time to see how he got that dub. So this was as Howarth was getting ready to make his move on Kostrich. Did see what was the look for Ross Wheatley up the inside, and Lecco in the end decided to make it too wide out the corner initially, and as they made the way up the rise, then he did let it go. We did see Howarth on the inside there, and then Ross Wheatley up the inside, and Lecco deciding, no, it's not worth fighting it anymore. But to complete that full pit stop strategy, if you have a very short opening stint, you can go back to a full fuel tank very quickly to go into your second stint, and you'd expect you are going to be carried the best part of what will be around about 35 to 45 minutes deeper into the race, and clear air can be very valuable. But there may be some one-stoppers out there, and those are the ones you've definitely got to worry about. But meanwhile, Joshua Downing for Type 2 racing, trying to make amends to what's been a difficult start to this race after that instant earlier on at turn 13, all over back of Danny Weir, who's lost some place as well. Change of it here as they roar the way into the opening braking zone, and here he goes for a move. Does Downing, doesn't make it work and has to stay behind for a little bit longer. Michael Rhodes, of course, making his move on Danny Weir back on lap number 8. We'll try and get a look at that when we can. But Joshua Downing still trying to poke and thrust here to try and get himself a little bit further up in that top 5 of the club class, knowing that the pit stops up the road, but right now he needs to make the movements happen on circuit. Getting on down here, if Downing was any closer at this point, I think he would be in the engine bay of the Porsche in front of him. So right now the Type 2 racer driver's got to think about this. And we're coming into the brakes here. Here he goes, looks up the inside. And well, this will be a relatively straightforward pass unless Weir really tries to complicate it around the outside. And no is the answer. And Joshua Dan up in the forfeiting club. Weir tucks back in behind, looks at the cutback here, and the run on the break, into turn 6. He's going to go for it, is Danny Weir, so he's not out of this yet. We thought he might have been playing it a bit passive, but decides actually to play aggravator, and well, the extra motorsport Cyan driver being a little bit nuisance there to Downey, and just putting them to some mental pressure. Ryan Abbott's meanwhile, Premier driver, the Team Nubish driver, well, definitely still trying to make his way past a lot of the club drivers. He has actually Shucks with behind as a buffer to Rob Mackay and Dave Collier, fellow Premier drivers. But right now he's got to clear what is second through to 6th in club before he has a chance to chase after Govind Suresh. And well, where are my manners? I have not talked about Govind Suresh at all recently. Keep in mind he started in 22nd or 15th in the Premier class. He's made his way all the way up to 12th overall, 11th in the class, and he's gradually closing the gap down to Ellen Olsen at the rate of 2/10 a lap at the moment. The chap's motorsport driver, already put on one of his most impressive drives so far this season. There's still a long way to go. And therefore, he'll know that just like anybody here, it's not how you start the race, it's about how he gets that finish line. But a bit of touch of grass there for Rob Gregg as he makes his way out to Canada corner, and we're definitely testing the width for the road. Ryan Abbott's looking around the outside, but gets very close there, takes a bit of grass on the front left tyre under braking, and that's what pulled him even closer to the back of Gregg's car, but gets away with that. And well, I definitely think that was a little bit of a squeaky bum moment, as we like to refer to it, as he makes his way up towards what we turn at number 1, and once again has gone to the 12th tour of the circuit. What a race we've had so far. And well, in terms of moves that we didn't catch earlier on, here's how none other than Michael Rhodes found his way past Danny Weir. This is back on lap number 5, making the move stick, and as he made his way out to the corner, he was going all the way down to the braking zone there for turn number 8, and went into it, and just like that, Darkwing racing drive getting ahead, although Danny did fight it hard, and they made the way in towards the carousel in the end, and Rhodes was just able to sweep around the outside. But with that, we do come back to live racing. And as I drive all the way onwards, more to come surely, as we are here. James Howard has just found his way past Clyde Vella. That's happened at turn 5 into 6. We catch the tail end of it now as he comes on down. Scott Kostrich still watching on behind, but look at them all going to the racing line immediately. And the GPX team here, I think all 3 teams on the radio to each other, and they're trying to work out how to strategically cut up this race, because it is no coincidence you saw Scott Kostrich come over to the racing line behind Vella, and Vella immediately pulled over with him, and Howard in the end was given the opportunity to take it a bit easier into turn number 8 by comparison what could be. I suspect the full process will be that right now they want to go as long as possible on that tack. The less time you can spend in the pit lane, the better. It's an obvious statement, but it really rings true here at Road America, as conversely, Hussein Sarkadesla has now none other than sister team driver John Ludbrook right behind him, with the Scuderia GPX driver. Knows there's still a bit more to be done, but definitely looking good so far. As he makes his way all around the corners at the moment, we've still got a long way to go before we really do get into major pit stop territory. Going towards the end of the opening half an hour of this race. But what are our drivers doing right now in terms of further down the order? Well, we do take a look back to none other than Daniel Mellor, the man who pitted on the open lap for repair works to the car, and the 5M racing driver getting close to the back of Petter Florian. And well, it's going to work out. Can he potentially make a move for 19th in the Premier class for the Kink? The answer is no, not right now, but he's hoping to do so in due time. Stays nice and close there. Remember, they've got Robin Aston right in front, as meanwhile Andy Chow the inside of Martin Brandon, and that will be for 15th place in the club class. Taking that back after his evasion through the Kink earlier on from the wayward car that we did see. Right now the 205 driver doing a good job of that move. Martin Brandon not fighting it too hard, and both there I think trying to be smart about this race, much like many of their peers. One driver we haven't really talked about recently, James Bostock. He's on the back of Gianluca Rospo. Both of these drivers having decent races so far. Rospo the bigger gainer of the ball, going from 38th overall and 22nd in Premier class up to 15th, whereas Bostock's trying to take that 15th for the moment, and he has gone from, he's been 33rd overall to 24th. So Rospo has made more ground, but the second member of the Scuderia GPX team, alongside Hussein Sarkadesla, well, he wants to make his way into that top 20 if he can. He's going to try and blast his way past it. Ferrari power versus twin-turbo V8 power there, the McLaren. Of course, the Ferrari sporting a turbo-supplemented 6-cylinder engine, and James Bostock getting that move done then is Ferrari 296. Smooth move. And well, his next target will be Dave Collier, who is 4.4 seconds further up the road. But as they come through, well, meanwhile, we see Ashley Shucksmith still keeping Rob Mackay behind. And right now, Shucksmith refusing to give an inch here, although Rob Gregg is gradually pulling away a little bit, fellow MRC driver. But understanding both drivers running in the club class, and Mackay running in the Premier class, although Dave Collier is looking at this and thinking about a potential opportunity. Well, Collier's there thinking to try and be a bit inventive where he makes the move, given that Mercedes will be very hard to pass at most places here. given its straight line speed and its acceleration. It'll be the low speed corners, which is where the Mercedes will be vulnerable, because of course low speed traction, particularly in first and second gear, which you do have a few second gear corners for the Mercedes to have to deal with. That is where it suffers. It spins up those rear wheels very aggressively with that 6.3 litre V8 engine. Well, you would imagine that Mackay may actually take some of the second gear corners for other cars in third gear to limit the wheel spin. It saves the tyres. He does lose some straight line speed. How the thought process is, what you lose initially, you gain back more later on over the race distance, or at least that would be the hope. As he comes out to the corner. Meanwhile, we do look from in the midst of the field all the way to the front. And Menno Bloem still chasing after Liam Fraser. Gap 2 seconds. And right now, these two absolutely even on lap time. The last time round, Liam Fraser a 202.62, Menno Bloem a 202.68, Connor Pink a 202.98, a personal best. He's got a way to go as he's now 6 seconds behind the leaders. But Fraser and Bloem are definitely pacing each other right now. And for Menno Bloem, if he can stay within 2 to 3 seconds of Fraser, I think he's going to have some confidence. He might be able to make some magic happen on strategy, whereas Connor Pink might be just looking at a lonely third place here unless he can find a way to get closer. But meanwhile, Danny Weir versus Joshua Downing, they're back at each other now, as I think Weir's made the move at turn number 3, and here they come down towards turn number 5. Downing on the inside, we're on the outside there in the Porsche. Downing a bit brave on the brakes here, goes all in for the move, 2 wide they go, and in the end Downing takes full place back in club. But all this is doing is buying an increased gap to Michael Rhodes in third. It's now 5.5 seconds between the club class drivers there for third and fourth. You can see in the timing town left hand side of the screen, now we have the class position shown and the class intervals between each car. And we do see Ryan Abbott's, meanwhile, the Premier driver here, who's probably thinking to himself, why can't they just sort this all out given the way they're playing? So he is gradually making his way through this club group of none other than at 6th all the way through to 2nd place. We've still got a few more to go through as Rob Mackay loses the rear out of turn number 8. He's the first driver to fall victim to turn 8 midway through this race, and the Extras Motorsport Cyan driver, he won't be the first, I suspect, today, as we know James Bostock going up the inside, his good friend there, fellow admin member at SimRacing International, and whilst they may be friends off the circuit, there's no love lost between them on the circuit, as Bostock will take that place. So I think that's one of his targets, to make sure he beats Rob wherever possible, although Rob Mackay typically the quicker driver, as we've seen over the last couple of rounds, and indeed this last couple of seasons. But then again, I think it really depends on which day they're having. As meanwhile, Josh Holmes and Gianluca Rospo still following on, and Holmes would like a way through if he can. He's going to be following these Premier drivers for some time, as we do have a black flag, and that is going to be an instant point-based drive-through penalty for Daniel Mellor. He's got to the limit of 16, and therefore the 5M Racing driver now knowing, of course, that is going to be an extra tip to the pits added to his race, and not a happy one. He can't have any work done. He'll have to come into the pit and then just simply make his way out. He won't be able to stop the car. He won't be able to have anything done. Indeed, it's the equivalent of going to jail on the Monopoly board there as he makes his way on through. As the 5M Racing driver has Peter Florian 6.5 seconds behind, but he's going to drop pretty much to the back of the class. Not the way he's wanted this to go whatsoever. Now, in terms of drivers we have lost from this race, we have so far had an on-start for Matthew Massey, and we have lost Paul Mayer. Otherwise, I believe the other driver we have lost is Peter Armstrong after a huge incident, the kink, and so we have lost a grand total, and also Rachel Hugh, let's not forget about her. So we have lost a grand total of 4 drivers thus far, one of them a non-starter, as Daniel Mellor makes his way down pit road as I look at my content booth window. But Andy Rooney pounded his way past Martin Kenyon meanwhile, and the priority in the 202 McLaren. Lovely livery on that car, it must be said. Definitely a very stealthy livery at that one. Well, he sneakily makes his way past the Acura of Martin Kenyon. That Acura not looking too happy today, although this is definitely not a circuit the Acura is going to be strong at. It is a cornering car first and foremost, with its 3.5 litre V6 twin turbo Honda engine, or Acura engine, Acura being the American arm of Honda, but this car definitely made in the United States of America as the Gen 2 NSX, the revival of the Icon from 1991 through to 2006. But as we do look a bit further back, we see there Robin Aston and Max Dean side by side, Aston on the inside, and that's going to be a move up to 32nd place there versus the Gap Max Racing driver. Overall position only, of course, given the fact it's the Premier driver passing the club driver. But we come all the way back up the order. We look to Govind Suresh, who has the pressure of Jack Giles behind him. And we're seeing quite a few inter-class battles right now rather than class-based battles. But to be fair, we always expect that between drivers as they carry on. And in towards turn 13 they go. New fastest lap of the race there, a 202.331 from Liam Fraser. My good lord. Meanwhile, for Menno Bloem, a 203.62. Well, I get the feeling that Menno Bloem's made a mistake somewhere. In fact, he has. We do have a bit of information to suggest he's made one. And here's a quick replay to explain what happened to Menno Bloem. So this was going through the carousel. What did he get wrong here? He's carried too much speed. He's understeering. Tries to get the power down again as he does so. Understeers a bit more and trims the weeds down the exit at turn number 10. A small mistake, but it has cost him a grand total, effectively a second on that lap. And well, that's a second he may not get back here as we come back to live racing. And as we do, well, we look to Hussein Sarakadesla, who's still got John Lubber at the company, and James Howarth is now almost with the pair of the GPX drivers. So Howarth, he's done very well to close up this gap as we ride on board with the Dexterous Motorsport Cyan driver. And well, after the instance at the start, which I don't think he will blame Eddie Theobold for, to be fair, because Howarth at the end of the day, he had to make a call literally at that moment, and Eddie Theobold's car, once it started rolling backwards, Howarth has tried to go around the outside of it, but unfortunately, if you're trying to go around the outside of something that's rolling in your direction, you are naturally going to come back together again. Frustrated at the time, I think he will have now calmed himself down a little bit, but he's not giving up here. He's definitely chasing a chance of what could be at least fourth place today, if not a chance of chasing down Connor Pink for a spot on the podium and potentially make it 3 podiums in a row for Dexterous Motorsport Cyan. They're definitely bringing right back into the championship at the midway point of the season. Here we go, in towards the King, and as he makes his way through, well, completely flat out there, no lift whatsoever, and the Dexterous Motorsport Cyan car even in the dirty air of the 2 cars in front. It's all geared up here, and I can imagine right now they might be running a little bit more wing on the car, given the fact it's got so much straight line performance, it's something they can get away with. But we look back to Clive Vella and Scott Kostic, with Ross Wheatley slowly and steadily closing up on them, and we'll still get ready to potentially make a bit of a move if he can, but now it's definitely going to be thinking to himself, okay, is it better to fight them on the road, or is it better to beat them on strategy? As we do say hello to Enough Said UK, who's cheering on Clyde Vella. Speaking of which, Clyde running, of course, in 7th of the Premier Class and overall. Between all the drivers, and well, as they roar the way onwards, well, we do look a bit further down the order once again. We look back to Mikel Salcuni, the man who opted to start from the pit lane, we believe due to a technical issue of the Renault eSport Ferrari. He was due to start 4th in the club class, so he's going to do this all from the back of the field. And right now, good luck is definitely not following anywhere he goes. It's more bad luck, if anything. Well, chasing after Max Sting for 15th place. Both drivers have yet to pit. Well, we are wondering what the strategies are going to be, as Robin Aston makes way at the inside of Martin Kenyon, taking over 31st place overall, 17th in Premier now he has, and Martin Kenyon drops another place there. And well, for Kenyon, started 19th in the class, has lost a few places overall, but to be fair, class positions he has gained, but he's losing them one by one. And something tells me the Acura driver here just not having a happy day in the office. We don't know if there's any damage to that car. There could be, of course, with a big check-up at turn number 5 in the open lap. Quite sure that information is available. What we do know is that his race right now is becoming a bit more damage control and limitation. But from him, we now make our way back up to the 2nd place man in club, 13th overall, Jack Giles, Hero Tyson Endurance Peak. He is there, we promise you, and he is following Govind Suresh, a Premier driver, but he's got Michael Rhodes behind him, and Rhodes right now is lapping quicker. Rhodes, that previous lap, did take the best part of 4 attempts. In fact, half a second out of Giles now that I adjust my eyesight. And the Darkwing Racing driver here getting ready potentially for an opportunity. But, of course, he knows now that whilst he has caught up, both of them have the draft to Suresh's car. Rhodes will have the double toe off of Giles' car as well. But the difficulty will be in the fact that toe will help him massively on the straight. But how much does it compromise his aero as he makes his way for the more difficult corner, such as the carousel? And here at the Kink, well, here he comes through the right-hander and make his way on through that completely flat out, fully committed his Rhodes, and the 206 driver here just not able to get close enough. This Ferrari now starts to build some momentum, but those McLarens, they are looking quite quick on the straights this season, it must be said, particularly in that 5th gear. They really do seem to come alive. It's only right at the very end they start to hit a bit of a wall by comparison, as meanwhile into the pits is from the 2nd place of the race Menno Bloem, and Connor Pink comes in behind him, and you can see that here as we do see John Lubert making his way on. Connor Pink heads on down the road, and well, we do catch him very shortly. Here he is, the cameraman does find him in the end. Indeed, a bit of difficulty there with so many cars swapping places, and Connor Pink deciding to come in. So we are definitely looking at a 2-stop strategy here for several drives. Perhaps our prediction of a 1-stop may have been a bit invalid, but either way, it's going to be interesting to see how this crisscrosses over here. The GPX SimSport Xenon machine of Clive Vella, the 105. Well, right now he'll gain some places on the road, but where does this fit into his strategic picture? And we do know that Scott Kostic and Clive Vella have been working together. And Ross Wheatley has played a bit of a game of, well, I'll work with the guys in front of me. Michael Lecco, the club leader at the moment, still leading in the club class by a comfortable margin of the best part of 8 seconds at this time, ahead of what is Michael Rhodes. Well, Lecco here just looking absolutely safe at LS Racing 2. And, well, is this going to be an absolute comfortable win for him, or will there be a bit of a twist in the tail as Rhodes carries on? And meanwhile, the man who was catching him has come into the pits of Jack Giles. So, Giles is in, a 28-second stop, so that's going to be fuel, and most likely 2 tyres, or at least 1 tyre being changed out, I'd like to say. Let's wait and find out with regards to pit stop times. In fact, a lot of similar times here from tyres. It may not be any tyre changes at all for the Euro Tyre Scenic Endurance Pink driver as he comes up to speed. But so many drivers in. Connor Pink, meanwhile, comes out alongside Andy Rooney as he heads down up towards turn number 5 under the Sargento cheese board. And well, coming into the braking zone here, the battle of the McLarens. Pink's definitely got to get himself warmed up a little bit. Andy Rooney, meanwhile, well, scoops around the outside there. And well, there's no expectation that a driver in the club class, they're on the lead lap alongside a Premier driver. They should step aside. They're battling for overall position if it's desired. And right now, I get the feeling that Andy Rooney is going to take logic, which is just hold your lines, let the Premier driver do the hard work. And so Connor Pink here might be finding himself under a bit of a test right now. This may not be where he wants to be as Liam Fraser comes in from the lead of the race. So he has gone the best part of what has been 37 minutes. So we're not seeing a one-stop here today. We're definitely seeing a two-stop unless anybody can really extend the fuel tank in this second stint. I think that's going to be nigh impossible because you've got to consider the final lap as well, which does make the race effective 91 to 92 minutes on average. As everyone comes on in, well, now it's going to be a game of who's the quickest on the fuel guns as they all head on down. And well, as we do see Vault 9 asking the question, where's the track's overall lap record in its history? And well, I don't quite have that information available at the moment, but I can definitely try to find out for you, good sir. In the GT3 class, I presume is going to be what the question is, and we'll come to that very shortly as it is pit stop bonanza there. And well, we look to Menno Bloem as he makes his way out the final corner, but Liam Fraser has already left his pit box, and Fraser is already into turn 1. So we now have some information for you. Liam Fraser's only taken fuel. Menno Bloem, meanwhile, with a 29.28 second stop, has likely changed 2 tyres. It's likely those left side tyres that we're predicting, and so that is where the gambit is. Fuel-wise, you're looking at somewhere in the region of 18 to 21 seconds, and then every other bit of second on that is going to be tyre changes, unless you've had a very poor pit stop where you've drunk so much fuel, and you've got to be asking yourself your question, how is fuel efficiency in the car? But as Connor Pink makes his way on through, well, he's changed at least 2 tyres as well. Ellen Olsen has not. So this is the alternate strategy that we're hearing about from Dwayne Hoffman in the YouTube chat. Valencia v Racing have got their drive up into 4th, and Olsen is on her original tyres still. Behind is Robin Aston. Now remember, he did pit on the open lap due to damage to the 5M Racing car, so he is out of sequence here. He will have to pit soon. That fuel tank will be getting dry. However, given the fact he did have that pit stop earlier on, I wonder if he's going for an ultra fuel saving strategy here to potentially just try and get himself realigned to the strategies of other drives. It's highly possible. But in all of that, well, Ashley Shucksmith now is into the lead of the club class. However, Ashley Shucksmith, we need to keep an eye on here. He has taken a pit stop that was 12.5 seconds stationary time compared to Jack Giles, who was 28. Michael Rhodes was 33. And Joshua Downing in the end was 30 seconds. And Shucksmith now finding Martin Kenyon for company. Kenyon has yet to pit. And is Kenyon going for the one stop here? That might explain it. We said he was a bit slow and we weren't looking at his lap times at the time. We didn't have him available. We just looked at him now. He has been consistently lapping approximately 2 to 3 seconds off the pace of the leaders. And I get the feeling that right now the whole thought process is here for the Dexter Motorsports Magenta driver is that he's taking all the pace out the car to see if he can one stop this and see if it gains him time. Well, this puts him currently in 12th. He will of course have to pit and put all the fuel in the car. And will he go for a tyre change on one stop? Surely you wouldn't go for a tyre change because that's going to cost you so much time. But if Kenyon can extend this and get it to 45 minutes into the race, if he can get it to lap 22 and pit, Kenyon could be on for one stop here. How well it'll work out, I think it might move him into the tail end of the top 25, but it is such a gamble here because he's having to drive so far with the pace of everybody else. If we were looking at a 75-minute race, it could be a monster strategy, but I think the 90 minutes, it's just a little bit too long right now based on relative lap times. But to be fair, when you've got nothing to lose, you may as well gamble as he goes into the straight once again. But Kenyon right now doing something nobody else is doing as Robin Aston has made his way into the pit lane. We thought he'd be coming in soon, and the 5M Racing drive will descend back down the order. But meanwhile, Hussein Sakadesla and James Howard side by side as they break their way through the corners. And right now, very close between these two drivers, no doubt about it. But Sakadesla still holding on as he rolls his way out of turn number 3. But a bit of a change between these two in the fact that we have Seed, of course, John Ludbrook fall behind as James Howard has moved forward. So right now, the Scuderia GPX driver not having a friend to play with, unfortunately. That's not helping him whatsoever in his aspirations. But here comes Howard looking for the potential move. Heading down in towards that braking zone. Here they go. And Howard up the inside there. Dives all in the Ford Mustang. And the Dexterous Motorsport Cyan driver will take that place just like that. As he does so, Sakadesla and Ludbrook will now come back together. Scott Kostrich and Clyde Vella are only a second respectively behind each other, and Ludbrook. So could we see the 4 GPX cars all suddenly start to work together? That would be a dream for the team. As we are Joshua Downing and Michael Rhodes fight each other at the moment. Has come in towards that braking zone, and we can see that Joshua Downing going around the outside to cover off a position he has taken from Rhodes. How did he get it in the first place? Here's the answer. So this was the move for Joshua Downing as he made his way out of turn number 3. Better exit out the corner, and Michael Rose having an answer there. Other than just simply keep the throttle pinned and hope that he can outrun a McLaren. He's looking very quick to make its way out the gearbox. Just like that gets it done to Joshua Downing. But as we do come back to your live circuit side pictures, we're now 20 laps in, of course, 48 minutes still to go. Max Dean a little bit further back, fighting with Pete Paver as he comes down the second straight, heading towards turn number 5. And right now, under the real cheese people board there, Sargento board. Well, we can see Pete Paver right on the inside versus Max Dean. Dean and the Lamborghini, the black and purple machine versus the light blue and black car for Let's Race the Paver. 2 wide they go into the corner, respectful racing between them. This is a 14th place on the road on strategy in the club class we understand it to be. And well, Paver's still on the inside. Dean's going to have the better line there around the outside of turn number 6. Does he get it done? The answer is yes. Max Dean takes that place back. Lovely bit of driving there from him. And Peter Florian and James Fraser now queue up behind. I think James Fraser's going to look at them again and go, I want to be a part of this. And he wants to see a bootlegger's driver. Comes down to the braking zone in a Porsche. It's definitely looking very twitchy under braking. It's how he ended up in the gravel trap at turn 14 earlier on. But right now it looks a bit more settled down compared to how it could be. And well, the thought process will be how far can he get ahead. But as he tries to get himself right back into that fight, we have Marcus Clayton into the pit lane. So Clayton in, and he's already made 1 pit stop today, the Rhino Esport driver, and that was a short pit stop. We believe it was for some work on the car, potentially a splash and dash as well. And now he comes in for his second trip, and will this be his final trip to the pit lane? As Martin Kenyon is still out there, and if he does complete this lap, then he will be on course for the 1 stop. If he gets to the pit lane unscathed, which we are expecting his work this out to do so, the Acura driver in 12th at the moment. Well, I don't think this is going to win in the race, but I think this is definitely going to catch a lot of drivers by surprise when he comes out and starts to pick up the places. But of course, he will be very dependent on who he comes out behind and whether he can do some fuel saving and slipstream off them. If he finds someone he can slipstream off of until they come to the next pit stop, Kenyon, I think, will be grinning all the way to the finish, because that will give him a lot of time saved in the race, and it will help him save some extra fuel, so later on he can push a little bit. But let's talk about some action on the circuit. As Simon Hunt looks at the inside of Gianluca Rospo for 24th overall. Rospo does not flinch at that as Hunt makes a little bit of attack. There's the rear left quarter panel of Rospo, and then realises it's not on there in towards turn number 6. Meanwhile, Ross Gillett now looking for the move. The Welshman here goes on the attack. Of course, remember he had all those concerns at the start of the season with his intermittent internet connection. He's got all those sorted out, and the Welshman right now looking to hunt down 8th place in the club class. Robin Aston, by the way, we do have in the pit lane. Unfortunately, they've had to retire the car. He came into the pits, and unfortunately, they have identified an issue with it. Well, it's all over as it is for Rob McCoy and Daniel Millar. So we're now down to 38 runners. Gavin Corby is the last of them, I should say, as we run on board with our Welshman of Gillett still chasing after that top 10 finish and potential chance in 8th place here versus Simon Hunt, as Andy Chell's a bit further back by comparison, but it's a split of strategies for Kratos Motorsport. Simon Hunt just taking the fuel, Andy Chell taking a bit more fuel by comparison, and on top of that, I think also potentially a tyre being changed down unless I'm mistaken, but also a bit of difficulty for him early on. In fact, I think it's just fuel now that we double check the pit times. Oh, and Rospo's got a bit wide there at Canada corner, and the Deep Motorsport driver rejoins, but we passed it by Brian Abbots, and that will see him drop from 17th to 18th in the Premier Class. The way Rospo's wanted it to go, as Martin Kenyon finally comes into the pit lane, as we see him there, parked up. And well, the Dexterous Motorsports Magenta driver, he has cut this perfectly pit stop wise. All he's got to do now is survive one other half of the race, and he may be able to make the 1 stop work, and it'll be very intriguing to see where he ends up at the end of this. Remembering, of course, and everyone else will have to come in for what will be effectively a bit more of a splash and dash style pit stop. It won't be anywhere near as long, we suspect, as the first pit stop. And well, will Kenyon be able to make his way back into the top 20? Can he get in the top 15 on the 1-stop strategy? He's the only driver here to be daring to do the 1-stop, as he's leaving his pit lane now, and he has changed the 2 tyres on the left-hand side, we believe. 31 second stop, 2 tyres have been changed, not all 4. So Kenyon therefore deciding to go for the halfway post. I think that is going to cost him some time, however, but I suspect he is doing that because he needs the corner grip in order to really get those tyres to bed in. The right-hand side tyres, they'll last a bit better, but the left-hand side tyres, I suspect, would definitely call in for a switch. Look to Danny Weir make his way after Eddie Theobold. Theobold still crusading his way up the order into 17th now, but a long way to go for the privateers. He makes his way forward. Now, the question that many of you are asking, and one of you were asking earlier on, was with regards to the lap record that's been set here at this circuit, and that was by Vault 9. And the answer to that question, in a GT3 in real life set by Frederick Schandorf in none other than 2023 in the IMSA Sports Car Weekend at Road America. It was in the McLaren 720S GT3 Evo, the year the car was debuted in IMSA, and it was a 2-minute 4.089 set under race conditions. And they're lapping currently in 202s and 203s, so not too far off in terms of simulator versus real life. But meanwhile, we come back to the realities of what's going on here, and Eddie Theobold looking up the inside of Rob Gregg for a move. Does he get that done? The answer is not quite. Rob Gregg holds his ground. 9, of course, and Danny Weir's not too far behind. And Theobold's got a tough customer in front of him now as they make the way in towards next corner, but Theobold on the inside. Gregg still there, closes the door, but runs a little bit wide, carries the speed. Keep the power down there, but brilliant back and forth between them. Well, Eddie Theobold now under major pressure from Danny Weir, who says, if Theobold gets it wrong, I'll make sure I get it right. And here he goes there, Dexter's Motorsport Science trying to power his way on past. And what's it going to be here as they get ready for the braking zone? Theobold on the inside, but we're in the Porsche sweep round the outside. And he does so, lovely move there from the 255 driver, and up into 17th place overall once again, taking it back after he lost it earlier on. Meanwhile, we have seen a move from Ross Gillett versus Simon Hunt, and Simon Hunt trying to come back here down the start finish straight, but that hasn't quite happened. And a bit further behind, Pete Paver still battling with Max Dean as they go too wide up the rise from Canada Corner. These two fighting once again. Paver trying to go outside to inside here. Does he get it done? The answer is going to be he does, as James Fraser now queues up behind and looks for a potential move. But meanwhile, Josh Holmes and Ryan Abbott, two similar coloured cars, but they're not part of the same team. It's the Team Yorkshire team machine ahead of the Team Nubish Aston Martin. Mercedes driving the club class, trying to hold on to overall position here for 25th. And will we see Abbott's look for a bit on the inside? Will Holmes decide to let it go, given it's the difference of 2 class drivers? And the answer in both cases will be yes, as we do see there Ryan Abbott makes that move, and Josh Holmes decides to let it go, knowing his target is Simon Hunt and Ross Gillett, who are fighting still just ahead. And there they are. But how did they get into this position? Here's a quick replay to explain. So this was coming out to the final corner, and Ross Gillett in the end getting an absolutely huge run off of turn 14. Wow, about that, it almost made Simon Hunt look as though he was a bit stationary there as they made the way out the gearbox. We know that BMW is quick, but that quick, my goodness me, that's quite rapid from him. And then going in towards that braking zone, Gillett getting the move done just like that. But we come back to your live racing, and as we do, we'll Hunt back on the charge here. And Gillett just now being put under a bit of pressure as he tries to hold on to 8th in the club class. Danny Weir, meanwhile, still has Eddie Theobold glued to his backside. Well, Theobold wants that place back, although I get the feeling Danny right now is going to be saying to him, no, you're not having it back. I want to go hunting after Rob Gregg. But Theobold does not give an option here, looks up the inside, throws it all in. And well, brave move there for the 100 driver, but sometimes you've got to be bold and brave to get it done, and does so. As I'm hearing in my ear that Mikkel Salcuni, his woes continue. He has towed to the pits quite recently. Not quite sure what's happened there. I don't know if we can get a replay of that. It's all over the Salcuni in this race by looks of things, or at least for now. And I wonder if there's an issue with the car as Weir tries to come back here versus Theobold. Oh, there's contact between the two, and Danny Weir sent flying to the gravel there. Theobold goes sideways as well, but gets it back together. And we'll get the feeling Danny Weir, they're trying to come across Theobold. Theobold was not going to give in an inch, let alone a mile. And in the end, well, that's how it's all played out between them as James Bostock makes his way past, going Suresh there, going around the outside to confirm the move. And well, hold on to 14th place in the Premier class, but Danny will be frustrated at that, and that puts him a long way back down to 7th place in the club class. But Bostock meanwhile still pushing on for a top 15 here in the Premier class and chasing that top 20 overall, as he does sit at the very back of the top 20 right now in the final spot of it. But as he tries to continue to fight, more excitement to come surely. We look to Martin Brandon, who finds himself in a long conga line of cars. He does have what is the machinery there of Max Dean in front of him, but the Ferrari drive gets closer and closer. The axis and sort of sim works, peels the inside, and here he goes on to the anchors. Ooh, goodness me, but we know Martin loves poking his nose in places where it doesn't necessarily belong. And well, yeah, Max Dean there, he wanted to close the door, then realised that Martin was there. He does it again, does Brandon, on the inside this time. A cheeky beat up the inside. This will now compromise the exit of both cars. But that Lamborghini's V10, the Audi V10 in the back of it, of course, being replaced by the Lamborghini Tremario. That does have a Lamborghini built and designed engine, I do believe. Well, right now, Brandon trying to go around the outside here, and well, Max Dean running out in top gear as they come onto the anchors. We know the Lamborghini driver here, a very strong driver under braking, but Brandon just as calculated. Great fight between these two over 14th place in club, and Martin Brandon still having to hold that outside line because now Peter Florian goes up the inside. Premier driver trying to take a sneak cheek peek, and we can see Andy Rooney watching behind as well. And Rennie would like to get involved in the 202. He's having one of his better races of the season so far, and well, definitely a positive one. Can he get himself into the top 15 in the club class? I haven't started from the back. Well, I'm sure there'll be many out there cheering him on, and we'd love to see him pick up some very valuable points. But as he comes off the corner right now, it's not coming together as Max Dean still under so much pressure here, as we can see there. To the max is the hashtag line, and well, he's definitely going to go to the max here if he wants to hold on. But as he gets ready for the kink, well, Martin Brandon will know there's no real way through at this time. Then from there, we come back to Simon Hunt versus Ross Gillett, and Hunt outpowering Gillett down the start for the straight. But you can see in the final third, the BMW comes back there as they make their way into that braking zone. And well, is it going to be Hunt? Is it going to be Gillett? Or will it be both of them side by side coming down towards turn 3? The answer is it's going to be Hunt there. And Gillett not having the confidence to hold it around the outside or the ability in the left-hand side tyres of the car. And Simon Hunt retaking that 8th place in club as it brings Ryan Abbott's just a little bit closer, and with Josh Holmes and Andy Chell as well. But with all that going on, what's happening at the front of the field? Well, Liam Fraser now has a 15.8 second gap to Menno Bloem. And well, I'm having to double check that. I cannot believe that, to be fair. And that's not because I'm being rude about Liam. It's just the simple reason he is bolting away right now. And he is opening up 3 to 5 tenths a second a lap versus Menno Bloem. What's it going to be this time around? Fraser crosses the line, and it is going to be for him a 203.24 for Menno Bloem, meanwhile, who makes it out the final quarter, runs wide there. Bloem is pushing hard. This is not working out for him. I think he's pressured himself here into trying to chase down Fraser, and that explains why that gap has opened up. Well, that lap is going to be versus a 203.24. The answer is a 203.36. So, in fact, pretty much matching Fraser that time around, but the SimRacing Team Lowlands driver definitely find himself under a very tough run. But we're having updates there all about the gyro saying we've rolled the dice due to lack of track temperature. Ellen reports a very good car, so that definitely will be confirming most likely that Ellen Olsen staying on a single set of tyres all race, and the idea being here that given the circuit is nice and cool, those track temperatures on the right hand side of your screen, 24 degrees centigrade currently down the opening sector, and the ambient temperature has not risen given we are in the early hours of the morning. We're only coming up to 9 o'clock in the morning simulated time. Well, right now for Ellen Olsen, if she can keep it together on that set of tyres all the way to the end and just take fuel again in the second pit stop and that splash and dash, she would very much be on course for at least the top 10 in the Premier class, if not a good chance at the top 5. It should be pointed out James Herf is closing at a rate of 6 to 7 tenths a lap. He has just taken 8 tenths out of Olsen in that previous lap. However, he'll have to find his way past, and always keep in mind, if Olsen can build up a queue behind her, she may be able to get the likes of John Ludbrett, Scott Kostrich, Sal Cadesta and Vella all into the game and get them all to fight with each other. But, as All About the Gyro confirms that Olsen is targeted to get a top 8 with the approach, well, definitely looking rapid at the moment, although Howard flying out there as well. K-Team's confirming that, and thank you Katie for the information regarding Mikhail Salkuni. A technical issue there, a disconnection, which is absolutely gutting. And well, that's a very sad moment there, no doubt about it for Salkuni. I can't believe it's bad luck, to be fair, and we'll hopefully he has some better luck soon, because we want to see him right back out there challenging for wins. We don't want to see him languishing in the pit lane for circumstances outside of his control. Let's go in Suresh on the outside there versus James Bostock. Will these two fight each other again? Indeed, right now, great racing between these two, and Gobin really has been one of those stars of fair racing all season. Whether it's Gianluca Rospo or with James Bostock. Well, here they go for 67, and as they do, well, right now Bostock holds the outside line there in his Ferrari, and we'll take that place back as we ride aboard the Chaps Motorsport 112 McLaren, and still looking for a way in. And, well, I do see Denny Ploger asking the question there. Did Rob pit early or late with regards to, I believe that's going to be Rob Mackay. Well, if it is Rob Mackay, he unfortunately is out of this race. He's come into the pits and his race is all over. And, well, we'll have to wait and see if there's anybody else. In fact, Rob Gregg. And Rob Gregg decides to come in on lap number 18 in the club class, running fourth at the moment, just behind Michael Rhodes by 1.1 seconds. The same stop as Rhodes there, difference between them 4 seconds in the pit lane. But let's go in, Suresh gets a bit closer here, and we do see the Gav Max car stepping aside of Max Dean. So they both put a lap. No, in fact, that's Gavin Corby there as Gavin Suresh gets very close to the brakes to the back of Bostock. A bit too close for comfort, I can tell you definitely that. But either way, as they make their way onwards right now, Suresh definitely eager there, but perhaps a bit too eager into that braking zone. It could have been tears, but Eddie Theobold in. Now, Theobold in for his final pit stop here today. So as he makes around down pit road, what kind of call is this going to be from the 100 driver, and where is this going to put him? So he's going to go a bit further back, and this is where a lot of other drivers are making pit stops. As Gavin Corby's into the pit lane, and we've just had a nightmare moment for Andy Chell, I do believe, who's picked up a meatball flag, and here's a replay to explain what's happened to the Quetmas Motorsport driver. So coming out of the carousel, gets the power down, absolutely fine, goes to the kink then. And what happens here? Surely got to happen at the kink. Oh, it just goes straight on! for Andy Chell. Car goes barreling onto its roof. My good lord. And, well, the sake of the steering snap there, because that just sent the car completely to the left. And the Quemos Motorsport driver losing out the car in pieces. My good lord. Well, I can tell you one thing. That would have not been comfortable on the steering wheel there in the simulator for Andy Chell. And, well, hopefully it was all's okay for him. But that was a very odd instant for him. No doubt about it. But one of the things we do need to talk about, remember Michael Lecco, your Czechia driver who was leading the club class and leading it by 8 seconds. His pit stop, he is the only driver inside the leading top 20, and LS Racing are doing this across the team because we've also seen it for Nav and Pete Paver. They have both changed all 4 tyres in their pit stop. So that's why Lecco's not leading or at the front of the club class right now. They've gambled with all 4 tyres. I think that might not be the right call, although he is lapping a second to half a second faster compared to those in front of him. Well, the problem is right now he's only really going to gain that advantage towards the end unless Lecco can pull off an absolute magical one. We'll have to wait and see. But meanwhile, Liam Fraser is into the pit lane. So we are coming to those second stops, and well, with where's his stationary time there? Menno Bloem carries on. So it's interesting to see. Liam Fraser did have a bit of a shorter stop. Was that intentionally a bit of an underfuel there to make the race a bit more symmetrical on the pit stops? We will see. Menno Bloem carrying on. So he takes the lead for now, but he was 15 seconds behind. There's a lot of time that needs to be made up there. And, well, can it be made up over such a short duration the remainder of the race? Ellen Olsen, meanwhile, as we do see there, and the suggestion that he is going to be only changing the front left tyre on the Flair TV racing car. So it's 1 tyre being changed, no more than that. Although I suspect that will be in the second pit stop that's coming up, and that's just to help the car get through the corner. But let's wait and see for Ellen what's going to happen as James Howarth gets a bit closer. And what I suspect for Ellen, it is going to be the game plan. Let the drivers who catch you go, particularly when it's James Howarth, because he's so much quicker and you can perhaps use him on a straight for just at least a bit of a lap to gain a 10th or 2 versus the likes of John Lubret, Scott Kostich and Clyde Vella, who will be more comparable pace perhaps at this rate. But we do see Andy Chell there confirming what's happened, and the question being asked there by Patchit48 and saying that iRacing crashed on him. And unfortunately for Andy, I'm sorry to hear that. That was a freakish instant. We thought the steering wheel had broken on you there. And, well, thankfully, by the sounds of things, your rig and yourself are okay. Just unfortunately, your simulator not okay. And, well, a bit of a sad end to the race, no doubt about it. Hopefully, some better luck for yourself next time. Now, of course, with the demise of one driver, and I don't want to put this out there as a commentator's curse thing, Ross Gillett could be on course here, not just for a top 10 in the club class, but his best result of the season so far, given he's running in 7th in the club class. And the retirements that have come along have helped him up from 9th to 7th. We'll have to wait and see. But I'm just putting it out there that Ross right now could be having a very happy day when he gets out of that BMW if things should keep going his way. Well, meanwhile, in terms of more pit stops, as we do have Chelkos in the pit lane with the instant, well, we do have some other pit stops being made. Gavin Corby taking his second and final stop of the day as the Max Racing drive makes way onwards, and Olsen deflects into the pit lane as James Howarth carries on. So Olsen, in fact, coming in on lap number 28, and will not have to worry about dealing with other cars. Everybody still making their way onwards here. We have got some questions with regards to what's happened to Simon Hunt, and it is because he has pitted there, Patrick. We can confirm he made his way into the pit lane on lap 26, and so that's why he's dropped all the way down the order to 34th place, and his pit stop did see him coming for fuel, and also by looks things for a change of tyres. 42 second stop, so I suspect that is going to be a full fuel tank, and it may be a full set of tyres as well. But as he carries on, well, meanwhile, we do have Alan Olsen being serviced. We do see none other than Barry Wenman coming in behind. And Olsen will shortly be seen going up on the jacks when that front left tyre gets changed. And then after that, it is going to be a race to the end for Olsen. But let's keep an eye on what's going out to the circuit, shall we? As Clyde Vella still brings Ross Wheatley to the party with him. And these two still running together very happily as Olsen in the pits now for 32.5 seconds. But that will be the tyre change being made there and the fuel going in. But as I head onwards, right now, Clyde Vella and Ross Wheatley still together here. And, well, Ross Wheatley has been closing up little by little, as he did on the first stint. But right now, as close as he can get, he can't find a way past. But perhaps it is the final stint where he'll try to make that move. Now, some of you may be wondering, what is the situation for none other than our driver of Martin Kenyon, the man who is one stop in today, as we understand it. Well, he is currently in 28th place, and Dexterous Motorsports Magenta driver has Eddie Theobold behind it. Now, Theobold has made his second stop, so you would imagine that Theobold will overtake him at some point soon, and it'll be 4.5 seconds back to Martin Brandon. And Brandon's pace right now is the best part of what is a 10th within that of Kenyon. So I think for Martin Kenyon, this is now a race where he's really at the mercy of the length of the pit stops everybody around him. But remember, a lot of drivers have yet to take that second pit stop. We show you the number of pit stops made on the timing tower, and will the vast majority of those who you see over one stop against their name will be coming in again. Kenyon will not, and well, the vast majority of those with 2 stops against their name have already completed all their pit stops, including, of course, Ashley Shuck. Well, in fact, not Ashley Shuck-Smith. And in fact, I will do a double take there. Yes, it is Ashley Shuck-Smith. I'm confusing him on my tone tap with that of Pete Paver. But as we do see there, Eddie Theobold going up the inside. What a move being made there on Martin Kenyon, but a straightforward move as that. And meanwhile, Clyde Vella into the pit lane from at the time what was 6th place in the race. And that releases Ross Wheatley onwards. It releases Jack Giles, your club lead at the moment, as he makes his way on down the start-finish straight. As he does so, the Eurotyres Endurance pink driver. Well, given the gap he is currently manhandling out there, quite happily, I think he's going to be feeling quite positive. We hide the number of pit stops, and we show those class standings. He's leading club by 7.6 seconds at the moment versus Joshua Downing, and well, both of them, they're going for the same style of pit stop to begin with. Michael Rhodes is on the back of Downing by comparison, but of course, we do have the question of Michael Lecco, how far he can get back into this race, but I think Lecco has actually dethroned himself of a win, given, understandably, what was that pit stop he came in for, and with it, the pit stop where he did change the tyres. But as we see the LS Racing 2 driver coming down the hill, there's still a way to go here, and can he potentially spring a surprise? I like so many out there. Well, that's the question we need an answer to. And he chasing after James Bostock, going stretch just in front, and they're still crusading up the order. And well, his lap time, his previous lap was not a good lap, to be fair. He was, I think, 7 seconds off, and in fact we have this to explain it, ladies and gentlemen, as the LS Racing 2 machine and Michael Lecco had this go wrong at the carousel. Carried a lot of speed into the corner, and in fact carried way too much speed on the exit of the corner, and the left-hand side tyres there whilst the steering was still turned. Oh, good speed of Vallejo. That is definitely going to be the death knell of his chance here of making what is this strategy work out for the win. That hit to the barrier, well, it has not given him a meatball flag, but I can imagine the front end of that Ferrari right now will definitely be feeling a bit more compacted. That will not help him with corners, and on top of that as well, it's going to hurt his straight line speed with the aero damage. So Vallejo there explains what was looking to be a good chance for his maiden win, or at least a maiden podium. Well, now can he hold on for a top 5 with Danny Weir gradually closing on him as well? Well, that's going to be a question that we have to wait and see the answer to. But 27 minutes left to go. Still more pit stops to come from a lot of drivers out there. We'll see James Bostock chasing after Gobin Suresh as Andy Rooney getting ready here to attack Martin Brandon. And these two, of course, running very close together for some time. Andy Rooney, when he did make his original pit stop, did change all 4 tyres, and well, that's going to be Martin Brandon out breaking himself there in towards turn number 5, and just like that, Rooney's going to have a chance here. Brandon tries to come back, however, Rooney has to be a bit conservative through turn 6, has to respect the space, and so now coming in towards turn number 7. Oh, and it goes a bit loose on the rear for Andy Rooney, and I don't think there was contact there. If it was neck on. Oh my goodness, and in the end, Andy Rooney's car snaps the other way as he tries to recover it, and Marcus Clayton on home soil. It's all got wrong for the Verado Esports driver, and that is going to be a toe to the pit lane there. Andy Rooney's in the middle of the road. He now gets it turned around once the road is clear. When the other cars coming up behind, and he all toe to the pit lane as well. Both cars there in pieces, and a gutting way for both to end their race, no doubt about it. And this is how it went wrong for Andy Rooney. So right, boys, he makes his way through the corner. And that would suggest a bit of netco contact there. The way the car just suddenly got knocked, and as he then tried to bring it back together, well, Marcus Clayton coming up, and unfortunately for Rudy, a bit too late on the adjustment, at least on that camera angle. But this is what it looked like from the on-board of Martin Brandon in terms of the battle between the two of them. Brandon on the outside to inside here, and we're taking quite a narrow line in towards turn number 7. And in the end, if there was contact, it was a tiny touch, but Satan tells me that was more netcode rather than a touch between the two cars there. But again, that'll be for the stewards to see should it get reported. But as we do come back to your live racing, gutted into the race for both Andy Rooney and Marcus Clayton there, as Josh Holmes trying to find his way around the outside of Ross Gillett, looking for that 7th place in the club class here, these two, as they fight, yet to take the second pit stop. But Gillett goes nice and defensive there, and the Team Yorkshire T driver will come up against a man who might be a coffee man. Well, to be fair, I don't know. We're just finding out there, ladies and gentlemen, as Gillett right now definitely not wanting to see Yorkshire T make its way through. Alternatively, is he more of a Tetley fan? You ask him. But as he makes his way down, the Welshman right now keeping his head down, wipers on there, that's to get some of the debris off the windshield. It's not because it's raided, as hold up a second, James Harris just coming to the pit lane, and he's got a black flag on pit entry. That is for speeding in the pit entry, and for James Harris, what's a chance at a podium, his 3rd in a row. That has come to an abrupt halt just like that. That will be, I suspect, to stop and hold. He'll make his way into the pit. He'll pull up. He'll do the stop and hold penalty first, and then he'll take the work on the car For James Howarth right now, it's all gone wrong, unless he is planning just to simply go down. Is it actually an instant point penalty here? I think it is, because he's just driven his way down pit road. So it is, in fact, an instant point penalty there for James Howarth, and it brings him out. Oh, and he strails the racing line there. Joshua Downing not too happy about that. And Downing now to have cat-like reflexes. And, well, Michael Rhodes will be grateful for the fact they've closed up there, and also be grateful for the fact they didn't end up in tears. Downing definitely not impressed with that. You can see a flash of the headlights again, and that puts under pressure of Rhodes. As meanwhile, Jack Giles right now, well, he is the best part of 9 seconds away from the pair of them. And I think it's looking very much on course here for that win. And for Jack Giles, where that would stand in terms of his championship run, it would mean it'd be his first win of the season and only his second podium of the season, adding to that second place from Spa-Francorchamps. And suddenly Jack Giles will be moving towards the top 3 of the championship, going into the midway point. But meanwhile, we still see Rhodes they're chasing us. Meanwhile, Josh Holmes and Ross Gillett fighting again, this time for turn number 1. Gillett goes to the switch back there. There's the Yorkshire team Mercedes, and now make his way on towards the next stretch, but it's a short stretch this time, and Gillett this time getting a better run off the corner perhaps. That's his full process here. He exits out. That Mercedes will be the quicker car initially here in the battle of the 2 German marks, but as they get towards 5th and 6th gear, this is where they'll equalise. As Sonny, the turbo, will kick in much more efficiently for the BMW M4 Evo. 6 cylinders turbo cores. The last time that we did see a V8 run in a BMW was as part of the none other than the BMW M8 GTE project, the twin-turbo V8 machine, but in GT3 it would have been BMW M6, which did run all the way from 2014 through to 2021, after which it was replaced by the M4, which was the translation over to the 6-cylinder turbo machinery seen in the road cars as well of the BMW M4. And well, there's a few stories been tell you about M4s and M3s, but we'll leave those for another day, but because there's never a dull moment here at SimRacing International. And right now Ross Gillett definitely trying to keep us entertained, looking for a move versus Holmes, but it's not forthcoming to him as he looks one way, then the other, but he's going to have to be a bit more magical about this if he wants to get it done. Now, off camera, of course, Liam Fraser made that second stop. He's just found his way past James Howarth, and he's moved himself up into 10th place overall, as Holmes does drop Ross Gillett, making the way up towards the kink. But as we do look to Liam Fraser, Howarth comes into the pit lane for now his second stop. He served that drive-through penalty, but this time he comes on down, and well, Howarth definitely picking up the instant points then putting it on the final couple of quarters. That's why he made his way straight to the pit lane, and we thought it was speeding the pit lane, but it was not. Meanwhile, we do see Joshua Downing and Michael Rhodes together still, these two very close, and right now the gap is only 3/10 between them as they head on towards what will be the run of turns 3, 4 and then eventually 5. Howarth in, we've got not over pit stops coming in at the moment at least. We'll have to wait and see what is to be. As we do see Downing coming down, and as he does, well, the 267 driver here, does he look for a move in the form of defending versus Michael Rhodes? The answer is no. Rhodes not close enough there, and I think Downing putting his faith in the fact this battle will be won in the pit lane rather than on the road. But track position is always going to be valuable between them. Let's wait and see whether Rhodes feels the same way about it. As Pete Paver chases after Ashley Shucksmith in the meantime. We do have Gianluca Rospo into the pit lane as well. He's just come in. And so Rospo will drop down there from 23rd place. We'll fall the whole way down the order, but we'll have to wait and see how far he comes back up once all the pit stops are done. Indeed, still a few pit stops out there for so many drivers, and we still have the question of the Acura of Martin Kenyon. How far will it go up the order as he makes his way onwards? He will see James Howarth leaving his pit box to his right, and he'll definitely get the call there as Howarth comes out the pit lane. The fact they'll most likely need to let him go, but the Extras Motorsports Magenta driver will be grateful if he siphoned a bit of a slipstream of a Howarth when he does get a little bit closer. But credit to Kenyon where it's due, the fact that right now he's going for this 2-stop strategy, and he's going to try and make it work as best as possible, and we suspect it will be enough to potentially get him into the top 20. Again, the fact he started in 28th place and 19th in the Premier class, which could be worth affecting what would be a top 15 in Premier and a top 20 overall. It's worth the gamble, and well, if he can pull it off, he'll definitely show to everyone his tactical nuance and his ability to manage fuel levels like nobody else. But Martin Brandon makes his way down pit road now. The man who was previously battling quite hard with none other than the machinery of Max Dean. Where is Max Dean? Well, he's making his way up the hill through turns 13 and 14 right now, so Brandon is going to be safe there. And Max Dean has second pit stop came in and changed some tyres. Meanwhile, Martin Brandon has just taken on fuel, and that's why Dean's pit stop was double the length of Martin Brandon's, and the size of the difference there between the two of them. So that's why Max Dean has lost out. Martin Brandon out 13th in the club class, as he does have the other Max racing car, Gavin Corby, a lap down, tucking in behind him. And Brandon will go on now, and you can see Joshua Downing in front of him, the man who's got a lap on him, as Downing carries his way. but as they power the way on through, well, we do see Gavin Corby trying to make his way past Martin Brandon if possible. Coming up behind him quite quickly is Liam Fraser. He won't want to be caught behind this as Danny Weir's into the pits. And Michael Rose's car was briefly up onto the jacks there as Rose now leaves the pit lane. So I suspect that is fuel and potentially a tyre being changed at most. But certainly Ellen Olsen carries on her way, tucks in behind Josh Holmes and looking cool on the side of the car. And right now the Felicity V Racing Drive also running under the name of Solstice. Right now continuing to cruise up. And with Josh Holmes in front, she'll be grateful for that because as they roar the way through, she's going to the toe, and that will help her gain some straight line speed here, which she'll naturally be losing time in the corners, given the gamble and strategy and the fact they've only changed a limited number of tyres on the car compared to others. But Olsen definitely doing a good job. As I do see Sarah saying, oh, by the way, I can confirm that Josh Holmes is a fraud and there's a coffee ban. Well, and then Olsen right now will definitely put the fraudulent T-ban to the test as she goes up the inside of a big twitch and quarter exit. And well, I think the Dutch lady was done. We're sitting behind the Mercedes, grateful for the tow. I said, thank you very much. I'll make my way on now as I please. And well, her next target will be Ryan Abbott's 18 seconds up the road. But of course, Abbott's has yet to take his second and final pit stop. But into the pits from the lead of the race is Menno Bloem, the on-track lead, of course. We believe that Liam Fraser is the strategic leader. So Connor Pink goes on to lead now. He'll be leading a few laps. John Ludbrook goes on through, and so does Scott Kostrich. But where is Menno Bloem in relation to Liam Fraser? We look to the blimp camera. Here is Liam Fraser making his way on the start-finish straight. And well, building a head load of speed already. Bloem's towards the end of pit lane. Still being serviced right now. And I get the feeling that Liam Fraser is going to get the jump here. Here he goes. Where is Menno Bloem? Keep an eye on the top right of your screen. There he is, and that's the gap between the two of them, and Liam Fraser is going to come out there with an advantage that has been significantly reduced. It's been reduced down to a grand total of 3.5 to 4 seconds, but Liam Fraser retakes what we believe is the effective strategic lead of this race in Premier and overall. And right now it's definitely looking as though for Menno Bloem he's going to get a move on here if he wants a chance to try and snag back that win. Because if not, for Liam Fraser, it is going to be a third win of the season, and it is going to be back-to-back wins, and that is going to help him extend that championship lead from 8 points, and we'll push it upwards towards the best part of what will be 20 instead. But as all the drivers carry on, we'll go with Suresh meanwhile. Still enjoy the battle now with Dave Collier. Well, he's caught up to Collier quite recently, I believe. And he's going to look for the potential move here as he goes around the outside. And Suresh is really coming alive late on this race. It seems though Chaps Motorsport have said to Suresh, wait until the second half, that second stint and the final stint. I think that's where he's coming on strong as he makes one through here. Remember, of course, he did take the extra tyres in the first pit stop, so he does have 4 fresh tyres in the car compared to Dave Collier only taking 2. And I think that's really helping Suresh now in the long distance. He's really saved this new set of tyres up, and he's been able to push on. I suspect in the second pit stop, he'll have a short fuel pit stop, and it'll be all the way to the end with 17 minutes to go. As Connor Pink has a look at my contact booth window, he now makes his way up the pit road. And John Ludbrook will surely be coming in sooner rather than later. But Suresh caught behind the Ferrari now. He's got to try and make his way past very quickly. And here he goes then, looking towards the kick. Does he go for it here? Well, if you're going to do for it, you're a brave man. But he decides not to in the end and lets it go to Collier. But now Michael Lecco is going to look for a moving turn because Suresh had to lift off there. And Lecco, by comparison, well, he's got a lot of places he wants to make up the ground for. And Lecco will take the 12th place overall there. And that will definitely curb Suresh's progress. Pink is in. So is Jack Giles from the lead of the club class. There you can see here for Eurotitle's Endurance Pink. Joshua Downing, does he carry on? He does. He goes another lap, but we know that Downing will need to pit again for fuel at least, if not for fuel and a tyre change as he makes way onwards. Although there's no mandatory requirement for the tyres, it's up to the driver and where they feel comfortable on them as Liam Fraser follows Downing. And right now the traffic is perfect for Fraser. He is catching cars just going onto the straights. He's gaining even more time with that Ford Mustang than the time he's already making headway through. And Menno Bloem 6 seconds behind now, and I don't think Bloem has got really a response here. He's giving it everything, but it is not working out in his favour. But Ryan Abbott's also into the pit lane there as he makes his way down pit road. So Jack Giles, meanwhile, starts to leave it. 14.6 second stop. That is purely to put fuel in the car then. And does he clear Ellen Olsen? He does. So Olsen's just making the way to the timing line now. So Giles will be ahead of Olsen. And we're starting to see perhaps the plateau of the progress of Olsen at this point. Albeit this is still looking good for a top 10 at least overall. And a good chance of what will be a top 8 in the Premier class. With Dave Collier well within striking distance and potentially what would be the machine at Hussein Sarakadesa. But we will see. Meanwhile, black flag for Eddie Theobold. That is going to be a drive-through penalty for instant points. So Theobold's unfortunately going to see his race into the pits. There he goes. And he's going to be making extra trips at this rate, sadly, the privateer, as he makes his way to the fast line on the limiter. As he does so, trying to stay away from what will be the slower lane there, which is for cars that be serviced, of course. There are normally two lanes in any pit lane in the world. Any what is FIA Grade 1 or Grade 2 circuit. There's the outside lane, which is called the fast lane, and then you've got the slow lane on the right side, which is typically used for servicing cars if they need to in an emergency, but also for cars to make their way into their pit boxes and back out of them. Whereas the fast lane is seen as the lane used to overtake in the pit lane. But meanwhile, as James Bostock and Ashley Shucksmith, well, they go to the fast and slow lane. Or at least that's what Ashley Shucksmith is hoping for, as Bostock on the outside. And, well, Bostock is going to take that place back very quickly there and gets it done. Or does he? No, because Shucksmith at the end elbows about a little bit in towards turn number 6. Great racing respect between them. And Bostock right now being held by the man who pitted on lap number 30 versus Shucksmith who pitted on lap 25. Definitely here has got a point to pick, and he wants to go hunting after Govind Suresh, who is 3 seconds up the road and steadily put it away. But it is pit stop season for GPX, because we've got Kostrich and Lovebrook in. So is Ross Wheatley in, as Liam Fraser carries on. Hussein Sarkadesta comes in behind the DC Motorsport driver. Fraser retakes the lead then. There's your confirmation of it. But where is Ellen Olsen in all this? Well, she's making her way right now through what will be none other than Canada Corner, as Hussein Sarkadesta, I believe, is at a very short stop. In fact, they've made a mistake in the pits for Sarkadesta. He did stop and he rolled out his pit box. They've still got to get the fuel gun back on the car. So he didn't have enough fuel there. So that's a mistake from him as Ellen Olsen carries away odds. So Hussein Sarkadesta having a much longer pit stop. There you can see the GPX car, the Scuderia GPX car, make its way out the pit lane now. And as he does so, where is Olsen in relation? Where's Dave Collier in relation? Well, Collier has been passed by Olsen, and Olsen returns the racing in 9th place overall, and that is 8th place in Premier. So the target of a top 8 here for the Fidelity V Racing driver is definitely being achieved, and now all she's got to do is hold on. Closest driver behind, Clyde Vella, 6 seconds behind, and right now closing at 2/10 a lap. It's all looking good here for the Dutch lady as she makes her way on towards the next straight. As she does so, one driver we haven't talked about too much, Rob Gregg doing a fantastic job, and in fact, with a very short second pit stop, only 13 seconds taking only fuel, he's now leapt his way up into second place here for MRC Rebels, and I can see that FTMG 52 saying Gregg is doing great. Indeed, Rob's doing a phenomenal job. He's on course for what will be his best result of the season so far with this. And I do believe this will be his first podium. And what a way to do it for second place here. Jack Charles is perhaps out of reach, but right now, I think he's almost put this out of reach of Michael Rhodes. Albeit Rhodes is 5 seconds behind. He is going to throw everything he can at this to try and get a bit closer. But as we look to the class positions there in the timing tower, we can definitely see how things have changed over the course of 2 pit stops and a grand total of 78 or so minutes of racing. And, well, as he makes way through, we can see that Michael Rhodes still ahead of Michael Lecco is recovering, but there is Lecco, and right now, well, I'll tell you what, for the 217 driver in that Ferrari, with the freshest tyres of everybody in the club class, given the change right at the start, despite his instant, that big shunt to the wall, where he's had the fast repair done, as he braves it around the outside of Govind Suresh there. That is confidence of the Czechia driver, and it's not just confidence there, I think he's seeing red right now. He wants that podium. Well, at the rate he's going, don't count Lecco out yet. I don't think he's going to catch Jack Giles, given the fact that Giles is 17 seconds clear almost of Rob Gregg, but it's not impossible here that Lecco could potentially take the runner-up spot. He would miss out on his maiden win, but it would be his maiden podium of the season, and what a recovery drive to do it if so. We'll have to see if that's the way it goes for the LS Racing at 217 Ferrari driver, but right now he is definitely hustling. There's no doubt about that. But meanwhile, as we look from here, we look back to Ashley Shucksmith, the man who's in 5th. He's also trying to make some headway, chasing after that top 3 in the club class. Bringing with him the Premier drivers Dave Collier and James Bostock. The two of them getting ready to fight, and Collier falling back into the clutches of Bostock as Govind Suresh has actually let Collier on strategy, moving into 11th place in the Premier class. We come to our Premier man, and right now the chaps Motorsport McLaren driver really working out this race intelligently. This is his best drive of the season, no doubt about it, and with one more place he'll be on course for a top 10. And so far this season, I do believe he hasn't picked up a top 10, but he would love to take one, I know that. And well, the chaps Motorsport driver almost within distance of it. He's just got to try and find a way to close down. It's 5.5 seconds there to what would be Barry Wenman, and then make the move right at the end. Easier said than done, however, as Joshua Downing, he's fallen a long way down the order after what was the difficulties earlier on. And right now for Downing, this race has gone from good to bad to a bit backwards. And in the pit lane, in fact, Downing spending the best part of 54 seconds in the pit lane there. I don't think he intended to spend that long in the pits. I think there's been a mistake of some description, or has it been a stop and hold penalty for speeding? But either way, Downing's race down in 7th in the club class. This has gone backwards when he was, of course, potentially to be on that podium of the club class. And the Type 2 racing driver has definitely made a bit of a ham sandwich in the final 30 minutes of the day. But as he now tries to recover what he can out of this, 12 seconds behind Danny Weir and 3.2 seconds ahead of Josh Holmes, there is Martin Kenyon, and with all the pit stops done, unfortunately for him, it hasn't quite worked out the way he's thought the one-stop would. He is currently running 16th in Premier, and overall that translates into 23rd. We thought he might have got into the top 20, but not quite so. And, well, the pace he's running at the moment is a little bit off. It is the best part of 3 seconds slower compared to his main rivals in the Premier class, and that is because he's having to save so much fuel. But to be fair, if you don't try it, you'll never know. And, well, if he does bring this home and gets that car across the line, he's definitely not going to get a proverbial medal per se, but he's definitely going to get a vote for my driver of the day, because of the simple reason, making that strategy work, even though he is not going to gain too much out of it. But Dave Collier has found his way past James Bostock in the meantime, and how exactly has he made that happen? Well, to make the way up the rise, we'll have to wait and see. We'll get a replay of that very shortly, I do believe, as to how he's made the pass, or will we? And in fact, that replay footage is not available. In fact, Bostock is attacking Collier there, we should clarify, and therefore there's been no change between them. My apologies there in terms of the narrative. As they make the way down the start of the straight, so James Bostock has still got to try and make a move if he can. But as they head towards lap number 39, well, it's definitely been a test of endurance for these drivers. Right now, how much longer will they be able to survive without making mistakes? As Eddie Theobold trying to make right for all the wrong at the start. And right now, the Moser Racing supported Privateer coming in towards turn number 14. All the back is Gianluca Rospo. And it has definitely been a frustrating race for Theobold, no doubt about it. As he peels out now, looking to outpower the McLaren down the start for the straight. He'll commit himself to the move here as he just makes his way steadily along. And Rospo starts to lose ground versus the BMW. German machinery steadily outpowering that McLaren little by little. But Theobold having to go very close to the pit wall there, and will now start to come back across there, tries to open up his braking zone, but in the end Rospo tries to squeeze him a little bit, and Theobold gets that move done initially, but now can he hold it in towards turn number 3, the corner where you do want to be on the inside of the better line. Rospo's going to try and hang it around the outside here, go too wide all the way through, but the deep motorsport driver goes a little bit too wide, and as a result has tucked back in there, as Theobold will now just power his way away, albeit you can see Rospo still trying to stay close here as we ride aboard with the Italian driver. Theobold, will he go defence here? Will he worry about the risk of the McLaren looking up the inside? Well, he's not going to. Rospo thinks about it and decides to pull the trigger on the move here. So Rospo goes. Meanwhile, you can see there, Theobold decides to take all the runoff area, and he goes so wide, he picks up a slowdown there. Remember what we said earlier on, go wide enough out there in the entry to turn number 5, you will pick up an automated slowdown penalty. Theobold has to burn it just like that. It's a small one, but still, it's an important one, and you do need to make sure you don't pick those up or you burn them as quickly as possible when you do get them. But right now, as he does burn it, which I know Rospo will hold on to that 30th place again. Martin Kenyon 10 seconds up the road, and we're grateful for the lifeline here with those two fighting behind him, because it means he'll keep him safe, and it will be a progress from 19th to 16th in the Premier Class day on the one-stop strategy. As meanwhile, Peter Florian still trying to fight his way past some fellow club drivers, albeit he's a Premier driver. He's the last of your Premier runners, down in 19th place of the class, and 32nd overall, with the last of the retirees then being Robin Aston. And right now, the Czechia driver just enjoying the battles as he heads up the rise. We're looking for that move on Martin Brandon. It's not going to come just yet. We do leave him for a brief moment. We do have James Bostock getting close to the back of Dave Collier. I think if he got any closer at this point, we'd either need to make a move, or alternatively, it would be two Ferraris merged into one. It'd be turned into what would be a tandem Ferrari, if you will. But powering his way down onto the next stretch of tarmac. Well, Dave Collier right now getting a good run. You can see Bostock getting closer and closer as he starts to really pick up that draft. And it's a long straight here. It's a long way down to that braking zone. And Bostock looking to the inside, decides to go for the move. And Scuderia GPX driver thinks about it, but meanwhile Dave Collier just taking a little bit of gravel there on the entry, and unfortunately that unsettles the car. And James Bostock, just like that, moves up into 12th place in the Premier Class. Smooth move from him, and that moves him into 17th overall. His next target, Govind Suresh, 2.6 seconds up the road. And what he's going to have this lap, plus most likely another 3, to see whether he can steal away with that 11th place. But I don't think it's going to be a top 10 for him today, even if he steals that way, given the next target after that would be a 10th place man, Barry Wenman, 11th overall, and he's just a bit too far off to the distance. But still, as they continue to wind the laps down, we make our way back to the front. It's Liam Fraser, who leads right now by 7.4 seconds for MRC Bootleggers, ahead of Menno Bloem, and Liam is still flying out there. And well, the lap times right now only a 10th or 2 quicker by comparison to Menno Bloem, but to be fair, he is gaining time every lap. And Menno Bloem, by comparison, the SimRacing team at Lowlands car, well, as he powers his way along here, he's doing everything right, but the problem is Liam Fraser is just being a little bit quicker in this exam of the two drivers. So therefore, second place will probably be the best he could achieve today, but given the way things went, of course, at VIR, I don't think he'll be too upset about finishing in second here, because it will be some solid points. He will understandably appreciate the fact that gap will increase between the two of them just a little bit. It will be his third podium of the season. As for Fraser, it will be his fourth podium by comparison. But as we then look back to Connor Pink, well, what a drive this has been so far for the privateer, the Marlboro McLaren. And indeed, at this time, not quite on the pace of the top two. And John Lubbock is closing him down little by little. We're not enough to really pose a worrying threat as we do look back to John Lubbock. But Connor Pink on course that maiden podium, and Lubbock will be on course for a very strong top five, and indeed almost on the podium, if not for the Darsley Marlboro McLaren. But at the same time, he's got to take the positives where they lie, which he's gone from 8th to 4th here in class and overall. Well, that's no mean feat in the GP Sport McLaren. I can definitely tell you that for John. He's been pushing very hard. I do remember the very first broadcast I did here at SimRacing International, all the way back in, I believe, Season 8 of Split B, and he was one of the drivers right towards the front of the field at Watkins Glen, the season opener, only for it to go quite wrong. Unless I'm confused it with Scott Kostridge, it all went wrong early on in the race, and it turned it into a bit of a redemption drive for him instead. But as we then come back to second place in the club class, and Denny Plugger taking the words directly out of my mind, we do see a growing battle potentially for second, third and fourth in club between Rob Gregg, Michael Rhodes and Michael Lecco. Now, the key point being here, Rob Gregg, he has not changed tyres recently. He is on the most worn tyres out of the trio. Michael Rhodes, meanwhile, took some fuel and also changed 2 tyres. We believe the left-hand side tyres. He's going to be much stronger through the corners that matter, such as the kink and also Canada Corner. Michael Lecco, well, he changed all 4 tyres in his first pit stop, and if it were not for the shunts of the barrier he had midway through the race, he would be ahead of this group on strategy, but now he's got to pick his way through. So in theory, the Czechia driver is on a degree of parity versus Michael Rhodes in terms of the condition of the car, and both have got a pace advantage over Rob Gregg, and they've been closing him down at a rate of 8/10 a lap on average over the last 3 laps. So Michael Lecco right now, and Rhodes will both know it'll be the battle of the 2 Michaels, as it will be also the battle between them and Mr. Gregg for that second place, the run-up spot in the club class. They go on to lap 42, 2 laps to go for them as they come across that timeline. But right now, who's going to catch whom first? Well, it looks like Lecco here is going to be the one who catches Rhodes first, and that's not the way that Rhodes will want to play this out. He'd prefer it if he caught Gregg first and then force Lecco to have to find a way past the Moonshines Racing Club driver, but sometimes that's the way it works out. And right now, I think for Rob Gregg, the team will be on the radio to him and telling him about the dynamic of this battle, essentially, and saying to him he's going to need to try and get Rhodes and Lecco to fight each other. One of the upside, of course, is all 3 cars are identical. They're all Ferraris, albeit the setup they're running can be different, and the drivers of the cars are different, and the state of the car. But the fact you are in the same machine, it means you know the characteristics of the car. You know where it's strong, you know where it's weak, you know what you can do when you defend with it, and you know what you can do when you attack with it. And all that information will be crucial as they come down through turn number 5. But you can see they're all closed up here, and Lecco getting the better run off of the 5th corner. The problem is he's just not able to get close enough to think about it into turn 6. And has to wait that little bit longer, but feeding the throttle in and getting very eager here to try and make this pass happen. Backwind off the turn at number 7, down towards 8 here. You can see how close he is. He could figure out a dive here, but he doesn't want to. He doesn't want to risk creating a gap to Rob Gregg, and that's the hard part. If you go for a move and you don't get it done smoothly, suddenly you could be at risk of losing out. As meanwhile, speaking of losing out, potentially 8th place in the Premier class, we thought she might have been safe from Clyde Vella, but Ellen Olsen has got Vella hot on the heels now, and Vella's going to be looking for the move here, going out in towards Canada Corner. And well, is Vella going to go all in, or does Olsen find a way to defend it around the outside? And the answer is that Olsen defends it, and Vella backs off. But back to Gregg, Rhodes and Lecco. Here they go, and it's going to be 3 wider as they go into the break-ins over Canada Corner. Rhodes on the inside, Gregg in the middle. Oh, there's a touch to the rear of Gregg's car. Rhodes comes in a bit too hot, and Lecco takes evasive action, and Michael Rhodes will take both places there. But Rob Gregg recovers the car and actually shucks Smith there, makes his way past, and Rob Gregg will not be impressed about that at all. I think Rhodes just being caught out on the inside line there, and as much as he'd like to give the place back, unfortunately he can't because of the risk of causing an accident. But Michael Rhodes just out braking himself by looks into that camera angle, and Michael Lecco had to take evasive action there to hold on to 3rd place, but understandably not the way that anybody wanted to play it, including all 3 drivers. But here comes Lecco looking for the move as our leader right now, making their way, well, they are on their final lap at the moment, is Liam Fraser. So these drivers making their way onto their final lap as well. And we'll Lecco looking up the inside of Rose, but doesn't have the confidence to make it happen. But what exactly happened there? Here's a quick replay to explain. So it was the run down towards that braking zone, and we did see, of course, what was Michael Lecco in the outside, but it was Rhodes on the inside here, and we believe he touched the grass slightly there. You could see the front right tire to brake just snaked onto the grass and that's what led to him making the contact with none other than Rob Gregg, who unfortunately has been really muscled out of this. But we must come back to your live pictures, ladies and gentlemen, because right now here we go to see a move from Lecco. He's going to try and look up the inside of Rhodes. They're going to touch, and Rhodes we turn sideways, and well, for Michael Rhodes, he won't be too impressed about that as he rejoins Ashley Shucksby, has to back off there as they head up the rise. But as they do, we must come back to this man, ladies and gentlemen, because for Liam Fraser, how about this? It is going to be an absolutely dominant drive to victory. It's 2 in a row. It's 3 this season. Liam Fraser wins overall in Premier here at Road America. And, well, the Moonshiners Racing Club Bootleggers Drive will be 11 seconds clear of the man who takes his 3rd podium of the season. It's SimRacing Team Loans' Menno Bloem. 4 seconds behind, it's Connor Pink with his best performance so far the season. His maiden podium. And then we will see John Ludbrook coming home for what will be 4th place there for GP Sport Zenon, ahead of Scott Kostrich, who makes his way over the rise, and he will take 5th place there behind his teammate. Great drive for both of them. Ross Wheatley, though, coming through, and he will take home 6th place there, and a great result for DC Motorsport, a season best. And Jack Giles, how about this, the Eurotype Insurance peak driver? He will come through, a 2nd place at Spa, but it will be his maiden win of the season here for the 259 McLaren driver. Well done to Jack Giles in the club class for that win. Hussein Sarah Condensed will come through there in 8th place overall, just ahead of Ellen Olsen, who holds off Clyde Vella to the finish line for Valina TV Racing, making that alternate strategy work for 8th place in Premier. And then Barry Wenman will complete the run of top 10 in Premier with 11th overall. Michael Lecco crossed the line there in 2nd place in the club class, and a bit of a messy ends the race in the battle for the 2 bottom spots of the club podium. The Ellis Racing 2 drive followed by Ashley Shucksmith and then Rob Gregg, but Shucksmith will see another club podium there. Well done to the MLC Bootleggers, and we'll be back-to-back podiums here in the United States of America for him. Rob Gregg missing out on that podium by slender margins of that contact with Rhodes. Rhodes 5th in the club class, 15th overall. Govind Suresh, a season best 16th overall and 11th place in the Premier class ahead of Ryan Abbots and James Howarth. And then we do have James Bostock taking it 19th with Dave Collier completing the top 20. A few more drives to finish this race, including what will be just behind Danny Weir, Joshua Downing and Josh Holmes, who've come home in 6th, 7th and 8th in club off camera. 21st through to 23rd. It'll be 24th for the recovery for Eddie Theobold, not his race today. And then we will have Gianluca Rospo going through in 25th place there. And, well, as he makes his way to that line, knowing it was a race full of fighting, but not the way he wanted it to go. Simon Hunt takes 9th in club, 26th overall, with a tough race for him, but ahead of Pete Paver, just about, who completes the club top 10 with 27th. And then I do believe we have James Fraser. Ross Gillett misses out on the top 10 in the club class today, not coming towards him at the end of the race, sadly, for the Welshman. And I believe your final finisher will be Martin Kenyon, who has made it work, ladies and gentlemen, on the 1 stop. We can confirm he did survive, and whilst it did see him finish down in 30th place, he did show it was possible here. And as Liam Fraser calls it down on the start-finish track, I think, to do some celebratory donuts here. And, well, another win for him. Is this the seeds where it all comes together for the Ford Performance Mustang for the MLC Bootleggers team? Well, it's too early to perhaps call that at the moment, but he's definitely looking to be some of the finest form we've seen for the last year or so, as he does hit the rear right quarter panel of the car against the concrete barrier. The team won't be too happy about that. What a result for so many drives, and Ellen Olsen as well, as we do see they're all about the gyro, celebrated in the fact in the end, making the alternating strategy work, just simply taking fuel with both pit stops and the change of a tyre as well in the 2nd pit stop, and able to hold on to 8th in Premier, fend off Clyde Vella by only 1.5 attempts at the finish line. But Jack Giles, well, for him, this is going to feel an incredible win, and understandably, the doorway was left open. Michael Lecco chose to change all 4 tyres in his first pit stop, but he would have been there potentially if it were not for his mistake coming out of the carousel. And Jack Giles in flawless today, and that was the difference. Not just their strategy, but the fact Giles made no mistakes, whereas his rivals definitely stumbled and fumbled at key points. But as he cools and calms on down, let's take a look at those race results, subject to Eddie Schuer's inquiries, and with it the scenic view. And as we can see, overall, our results here for round number 5 of the SimRacing International Thursday GT3 Championship Season 13. You've been tuned to Split B here from Road America on iRacing, and Liam Fraser taking the win for MLC Bootleggers by 11.5 seconds overall ahead of SimRacing Team Loans' Menno Bloem. That's Premier overall, and Connor Pink completing the overall podium, a further 4 seconds behind. The privateer going under the radar, not in the pace of the top 2, but enough pace to make sure nobody else could come through to catch him. It was their GPX Sport Xenon 4-5 with John Ludbrook ahead of teammate Scott Kosh Košić for the two working together throughout. And DC Motorsports' Ross Wheatley with a brilliant drive there to 6th place, and will manage to thread the needle between the GPX SimSport cars. In the end, coming home in 6th, just ahead of Jack Giles, Euro Titans Endurance Pink. Your club winner is maiden win, and the only club drive today to be inside the top 10, with Hussein Sarkodessa losing out in the late stage to finish 8th there for Scuderia GPX, ahead of Ellen Olsen for Validity V Racing, who he was able to pass, but Clyde Vella was not able to pass Olsen, finishing directly behind in 10th place for GPX SimSport Z-On. Barry Wehrman, a frustrating race for him. The Dexterous Motorsports Magenta Drive finishing 11th in the end, best to rest, ahead of Michael Lecco, your runner-up in the club class for that scrappy end to the race in the club class from 2nd through to 5th, and Lecco only taking that second at least on the road for Ellis Racing 2, 3 seconds ahead of Ashley Shucksmith, who picked apart all the pieces there and took the 3rd place spot on the podium, and another podium for him. He'll be pleased with that. So MRC Bootleggers, a huge set of points coming to the team. MRC Rebels is Rob Gregg, a chance at a 2nd place. They went astray with that contact with Michael Rhodes, and Rhodes finished directly behind him there, a 2nd adrift for Darkwing Racing, and that completed your top 5 of the club class. Govind Suresh, Ryan Abbots, James Howarth, James Bostock, and Dave Collier completed your top 20, and outside the top 20, 21st place, it was Danny Weir, head of Joshua Down in the Type 2 Racing Drive, and a frustrating 2nd half of the race, dropping it down the order, and indeed, in the end, just finished ahead of the Team Yorkshire T-Machine of Josh Holmes. Eddie Theobold was 24th, head of Gianluca Rospo for Deep Motorsport. Then we did see Simon Hunt in 26th place, had a Pete Paver, getting the upper hand on him in the end for Quatermass Motorsport, and it was James Fraser and Ross Gillett just behind, and then completed the top 30 on the one stop. The only driver to do it today, albeit it wasn't the optimum strategy, but he went for it anyway. Martin Kenyon for Dexterous Motorsports Magenta in his Acura. 31st, it was Martin Brandon, a lap down as classified, as it also was for Peter Florian, with Max Dean, Marcus Clayton, Andy Rooney, and Mikhail Salkuni completing those a lap down, and well done to Salkuni for getting the car back out there after the iRacing simulator crashed on him, and being able to get back into the race, albeit finishing a lap down, but still galloping some valuable points. It was 2 laps down to Gavin Corby, your last classified finisher on the road, and I do believe Andy Schell will be classified as a finisher, as he did complete the race within the defined distance to the race winner, 6 laps down, despite the late retirement due to that huge hit to the wall. We also did see non-finishes for Robin Aston, Rob Mackay, and also outside the top 40 there, Daniel Miller, Peter Armstrong, Rachel Hugh, Paul Mayer, and a non-start for Matthew Massey. But in terms of the individual class finishing results, well, firstly, we got to see in Premier, as we look to our top tier of our 2 classes in Split B, Liam Fraser, a 3rd win of the season for the MRC Bootleggers driver, and well, having taken already those wins, he'll be absolutely pleased as that. In the fact, it has been his first endurance race win with 2 feature race wins, with Menno Bloem, of course, taking the win at none other than Watkins Glen in the season opener. But today, the strategy was on the side of Fraser, as was the pace, and Menno Bloem having to settle for 2nd for SimRacing Team Lowlands. Connor Pink, the priority, making his way to 3rd at a maiden podium, a very proud one at that, and John Ludbrook ahead of Scott Košić, the 2 teammates together for GPX SimSport and completing that top 5. 7 seconds behind, Ross Wheatley for DC Motorsport was 13 seconds ahead of Scuderia GPX's Hussein Sakadesla, who at one point was looking for a top 5, but it seems as though as the race went on, the pace went away from the Ferrari driver. Ellen Olsen with the gamble and strategy making it work, and a very happy result, 8th place there, one of the best results of the season so far for Validity V Racing, and it was only a 10th behind to Clyde Vella for GPX SimSport Z-On. Barry Wemman completed the class top 10 there for Dexterous Motorsports Magenta, ahead of Chaps Motorsports Govind Suresh, who enjoyed plenty of battling once again, and will that maiden top 10 will come soon, I'm sure of that. But today he was ahead of Ryan Abbott's Team Nubish, who closed him down to 2 seconds at the end. And then we did see James Howarth, James Bostock, and Dave Collier complete the top 15. It was a recovery race for James Howarth, but less so for Eddie Theobold in terms of how far he could go, with Gianluca Rospo 17th there, ahead of Martin Kenyon, a lap down to Peter Florian. And then we did see the retirements in the race and non-finishers as classified for Robin Aston, and also Rob Mackay, Daniel Miller, Paul Mayer, and a non-start for Matthew Massey. But then to the club class we go. And as we can see here in club, Jack Giles, your winner, taking his maiden win to add to his podium from round number 3, and the Euro Titans Endurance Pink drive 20 seconds clear of Michael Lecco for LS Racing 2, who took that podium, but of course under slightly controversial circumstances. Ashley Shucksmith, not part of the controversy, but threaded his way through it as an opportunity to finish on the podium for MRC Bootleggers, and perhaps the biggest victim of some of the controversy, Rob Gregg there with that full place at MRC Rebels, but of course, Michael Rhodes also being turned in late contact, and the Darkwing Racing drive finishing in 5th place in the M. And Danny Weir in 6th for Dexterous Motorsport Siam, 2 seconds ahead of Joshua Downing for Type 2 Racing. Then we did see the Team Yorkshire T at 221 of Josh Holmes in 8th place. They have a decent result, no doubt about it. He was happy with that, as I do see him saying that in the YouTube chat there. That's JC Blitz, I do believe. And then we do see Simon Hunt ahead of Pete Paver, completing the top 10 for Quatermass Motorsport and LS Racing. In 11th, best of rest was James Fraser for MRC Bootleggers, definitely getting his elbows out in the early stage of the race, and it rewarded him well, ahead of Ross Gillett. And then we did have a lap down. Martin Brandon, Max Dean, Marcus Clayton, Andy Rooney, and Mikhail Cooney. And shout out to Andy Rooney there for a good run on strategy, although it didn't quite work out in the end for a top 15, but he came close to it. And we did see 2 laps down for Gavin Corby, and Andy Chell, the last classified finisher, 6 laps down there for Quatermass Motorsport. Sadly, we did lose Peter Armstrong along the way, and well, we also did lose much earlier on than that Rachel Hugh there for Blue Sky Esports behind the Ghost Squadron Motorsport driver. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our rundown of the results, subject to any Stuart's inquiries. And well, we're going to take a brief breather, approximately 5 minutes, but when we do come back, we'll be back for our all-important post-round interviews from our volunteer drivers. I'm sure there's plenty of stories to be told today from the classic countryside circuit here in the US of A of Road America. We will see you again very soon. And it's lights out and away we go for our season opener as Sardply gets a good start, but look alongside him and you'll see there Milton Tomlinson Dennis immediately going the attack into the braking zone. 1 drive into the grass already, that's Mikey Story, but 3 wide they come into the opening corner. That's a bold move there. William Humphrey makes the place as they make the way through in towards turn number 2. I think the L23M Esports driver here might just be fancying his chances once again as they come into the braking zone now for turn number 1, and as they make the way from right into left, well, Hayden Miller here side by side with him. They'll go all the way through to turn number 3, and Saunders does take the place there. That's for overall position, not for pro position. Saunders is the pro leader, but he goes a bit deep there at 3 to the inside of 4 then, and Miller right now enjoying this. Saunders enjoying it. A little bit of rub and contact between the 2 of them, but nothing wrong with a bit of bump and grind between the 2 Ford, the Ford and the Corvette, 2 Americans I should say. And
with those 2 Evo drivers in front of them, they're just, they're realistically in a completely different race. They're just a barrier up towards the likes of Rubino and Wendell. Oh, there's Rubino going off the road, and here comes James Bostock, past 1, past 2. This is a great little move from James.
Oh, and look behind him as well. Hardiek, up high, he decides to come back down low. But Denny Plurger has really lost a lot of ground here. He's lost 7 places since the start of this race in that green Porsche. But look at this, for the lead, Hammond wants it. He's gone back down the inside. He got off the brakes again to let the car down the inside of Rob Mackay. And you said Rob was going to be clinging on at the front. And now he's clinging on to second. Great move by Lewis Hammond. Really good committed stuff. And look, down the inside, Richard White. He wants a piece of this in the Porsche. He's got James Bostock.
And it's lights out and away we go here as Mirko Bortolotti goes exactly on the green, and as they roar the way down towards turn number 1, Martin Statman side by side with him, but look behind Tim Perry under pressure, Miguel Leon immediately as the Enosis Esports driver tries to put the pressure on. Further back we've got 3, 4 wide, they're all in the crush as they come through the opening bay. Look back for the rear of your second place runner of Statman, and Statman right now for the Gazex Racing team. What he's trying to do here, I think now, is just hold on to second, and if needed, he may have to act as a bit of a buffer and perhaps sacrifice a little bit of his race for the race leader here, although Bortolotti, to be fair, I think might be holding some pace back. But here comes Lux in the tow in towards what we roller coaster they come with the Virginian corkscrew. It's left into right very quickly here as they both make the way, and it's 2 wide on entry, but Lux gets ahead. It's up into second now, as it will be Martin Statman falling down to 3rd, but Callum Lux does clear another one, and now only 1 car is between him and an opportunity of victory here tonight. Which is Perry going to make the move, or I'm going to have to make the move for him? Well, there's your answer. Perry's going to go on the inside here of Dean into the braking zone. Edwards gets to watch it from the popcorn seat view. Perry there being 2 wide on exit. Dean's going to try and hang around the outside. Does Edwards think about going up the inside as well? He gets himself ready for it in case there's contact, but there's not. Perry there being fair. Dean tucks back in behind. Lovely move there from Tim Perry. And I think the old Beardsworth will hope they don't get close up in time as Beardsworth's going to look up the inside. He goes all in, and it's from very far back. He gets it stopped, however, and Beardsworth there nails the move, but Tillerson's going to come back at him up the hill. Does he go in on the brakes here? This is bold to do it on the inside. No, he does not. And Brian Beardsworth at the end, he gets it wrong. He goes out wide at turn number 6. Tillerson's going to be 2 wide with him, but 2 wide they're going to turn 7. Tillerson goes on the switchback there. 9 has no way through, and in the end they come down towards turn number 8. Well, there Tillerson backs off. He lets Hutchinson go around the outside, but is it the right call? Alrighty, ladies and gents, so without further ado, it is time to kick off our post-round interviews here for Split V's trip to Road America. And what better way to do so than come to a man who's had a season best result today, and it is none other than Connor Pink, our third place finisher, who now joins me in the interview room. Connor, good evening to you. What a performance from yourself. I believe your maiden podium of the season, and doing it in style here at Road America.
Yeah, good evening. Yeah, it was a good race overall. Really enjoyed it. Road America is one of my favourite tracks, so yeah, it was good fun.
Well, indeed, a brilliant drive from yourself and showing that love for the circuit. And starting off with your qualifying session, 6th place overall. We've typically seen you qualifying or pushing towards the top 10, but really in the midst of it today. Were you happy with your qualifying performance?
No, not at all. I jumped on about 10 minutes before qualifying, messing about with my setup to realise I had no TC on at all in my setup, and then trying to muck about with that in qualifying, managed to get to 6th. So yeah, I wasn't particularly happy with that, but then off the start it felt really strong, and yeah, obviously there was a slight accident in front of me which just gave me the edge to kind of push into 3rd, and then it's just a matter of hanging on really.
Well, like you say, a bit of an incident in front, the Howarth and Theobold incident at Tournament Vibe, but you survived that, and then afterwards, enjoying a bit of, I want to say, a bit of a lonely race for yourself. Did it feel like that? Because the top two had run away, but everyone else couldn't quite stay with you.
Yeah, it certainly did. Yeah, it was like you were in a bit of no man's land. It kind of felt like lone qualifying, to be honest, with a bit of traffic chucked in halfway through. But yeah, no, it was a bit of a crazy one. I seemed to not be able to catch the people in front of me, but then was gaining on the, pulling out a lead on the people behind me. When it came to the first pit stop, I was a little bit worried that I'd kind of messed up. But when I come back around, realised that I was okay. And then P1 dove in for an early pit stop, and I thought about changing my tyres there, but I just decided it wasn't worth it. I needed to hold my position. I had a really bad in-lap. I was about a second down from my lap time on the second pit stop, and I think that kind of just put me behind coming out in front of Menno. Otherwise, I think I maybe could have pulled out in front of him, but I don't think I'd have held it anyway. My tyres were dying at the end of that race completely.
Oh, fair play. Well, tyres weren't looking too good, but at the same time as well, you kept it cool, calm and consistent. And in the end, bringing home that 3rd place, I mean, it must have put a big smile on your face to see that checkered flag and think, right, I've got the podium. It's taken some time, but it's the first big result on the board.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I've missed a couple of weeks. I haven't been very well. So when I saw Road America on the sheet, I was like, right, I'm just going to do it, whether I don't feel good or not. And it's really good to kind of come out with a podium position. I was hoping for a podium position, and that's what we managed to pull off. So yeah, really happy with that.
Well, a brilliant result, and I do have to ask, perhaps a little bit tangential to your result, the fact that you do have all the Marlboro sponsorship on the car. Is this a tribute perhaps to the MP44 from what would be the early 90s era of Formula One?
Yeah, I absolutely love the Marlboro livery, and it belongs on a McLaren, so I always race it in league races. I have done other liveries before. I've gone for the McLaren Mercedes livery, the Vodafone one before, but I can't race anything but the Marlboro. It's kind of like a bit of a superstition for me in league racing. I love to race in the Marlboro one, so if I race in something else, I kind of blame that for my bad outcomes.
Oh, fair play. Well, understandably, the livery looking sharp out there. And coming back to your performances and bring the Marlboro McLaren to the top again. Next up, of course, we make our way all the way to none other than what will be the wonderful circuit of the Hockenheimring with wet weather expected for round number 6. How are you feeling for it?
Never really great in wet weather. Hockenheimring, again, not one of my favourites, but we can put some practice in and we can see where we end up. I have low expectations for that, but hopefully I can break those low expectations, get a good result.
Well, we look forward to seeing you try to surpass your expectations, like you say. But just before we do let you go, is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out or a mention to on the broadcast?
Just the missus that always watches, and my mate Jim that's watching as well. Always talking in my ear, telling me what's happening behind me, what's happening in front of me. So yeah, it's really good to have him on board. So yeah, just shout out to them too.
Oh, fantastic. Well, they'll appreciate the shout out. Like, we've appreciated you joining me in the interview room. Connor, congratulations on your first podium of the season. Good to see you back and fighting fit, and we hope to see the results continue at the Hockenheim Ring next week. But until then, have a lovely evening, and well done on a superb result.
Great, thank you.
So here and there, ladies and gentlemen, for a very happy Connor Pink. And we're talking about the fact today, not too happy about the qualifying performance, felt as though he could be up there, and it was because he had the wrong setup on the car with regards to that traction control setting. Once he got it clicked in the right direction, it started to come. But in the race, talked about the fact there that after a good start, gained the 2 places and moved forward as a result of the James Howarth and Eddie Theobold incident at turn number 5. And after that, found himself in a very lonely race, couldn't catch the 2 leaders, but was well clear of the rest of the field. And then just made sure to get it right on strategy, didn't put a foot wrong, and made sure to manage those tyres well enough, and taking that result in a car with a brilliant livery, and perhaps a little bit of superstition there. If he doesn't run a Marlboro livery on the car in that McLaren, then things don't always work out. But it definitely worked out today, and I wonder if this is going to be the start of a monumentous run perhaps for Connor Pink, and see him move right through the top 10 of the Premier Championship. Well, you never know, to be fair, it always has to start somewhere. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to step away for a brief moment, and we will be back for our second interview very shortly. And so, ladies and gentlemen, now joining me for an interview for the first time this season, it's going to be none other than Ellen Olsen, who joins me in the interview room. Ellen, good evening to you. What a drive for yourself. 8th place in the ending class, 9th overall. A bit of a gamble and strategy, but it worked out.
It did work out. Hi, Paul. Thanks for having me. It was a really good race on our end. Finally, a nice one that we brought home. P8 in class. I'm very happy with it. Previously, I think my best result was at Bathurst, which was really just a battle against the elements. But in this one, it was about pace. It was about strategy. 90-minute race. It was amazing.
Oh, no doubt about it. And we have seen, as this season has gone on already, the pace is really starting to come forward in qualifying. Here today, 11th overall in class. I mean, are you finding that as we go through the season, you're getting quicker to the field, or is Road America a circuit you just really enjoy?
Road America is a circuit I practiced a lot last week. I drove it as GTP, as LMP2, and of course a whole bunch of GT3 races in the Porsche. I got the setup early from Gyro, my crew chief. Amazing guy, amazing setups. I am honest, I refuse to drive the Porsche GT3 without his setups. It is just so much fun to drive. So yeah, it was a really good one. And after last week's disappointment at VIR, it was needed.
Oh, indeed. Putting that disappointment of VIR behind you and qualifying just one part of the story, let's talk a little bit about the race. We saw you have a steady start to the race, avoided trouble, but strategy-wise, were you always planning to go with the just take fuel at the start and then just change 2 tyres, or change a tyre and the fuel in the second stop, or was that a bit of a on-the-fly decision?
So I knew it would be a 2-stopper, right, with the extended race distance. And I mapped out early on, before the race started, how much fuel I would need to bring it to the end. So I mapped out about 166 liters I would need. And starting with 70 liters, it would be a 2-stopper. And then on the fly, we basically decided with Gyro in the chat communicating, crew chiefing. We went for the early stop, no tires, just a little bit of fuel. I think we went with half a tank. And then on the second pit stop, it was the question, do we take full left side tires or what do we do? I took only the left front tire, and it made the kink very sketchy towards the end of the race. It was very sketchy with the rear tires, but we survived it. We held off Clyde, who was charging fast. He took all 4 new tires at the last pit stop, and then he was just running 1.3 seconds faster than me every single lap. I was sweating at the end. It was very close.
Oh, indeed it was. But indeed, you managed to hold off Clyde Vela by only, what was 1.5 tenths at the finish line. I mean, that must have been the biggest sigh of relief when you crossed the finish.
Absolutely. In terms of raw pace, he caught me 2 laps before the end, and then it was just about defensive driving. Thanks to the setup, I did not get swallowed up on the straights, and under braking, I managed to eke out a little bit of a gap against Clyde. It worked out quite well. Very happy with it. Very elated.
Oh, you deserve to be fair. One of your finest drives so far this season. And as we cross the
Thank you.
halfway point, coming up next, of course, we've got the Hockenheimring. We go back to Europe and wet weather. Is it going to be a case of survival in the wet like Bathurst, or do you think you can go even further?
I love wet weather driving, fully honest. I just haven't had much of a chance to do so in the last half year. It seems like every time there's a race with a rain chance in iRacing, I somehow end up not getting it. I don't know why, but the rain gods do not favor me, even though I love driving in the rain. So I'm hopeful for a really good race. It is currently Hockenheimring this week at the GT Sprint schedule. So I drove 2 races of that, but in the Ferrari, I have to admit, betraying the Porsche a little bit. It was a fun time. It's a great track. It is my local track, actually. It's just about 1 hour away from where I live, and I've been there when I was a small child, so I'm very excited to drive there. It is always a pleasure and an honor to go there and do some racing.
Oh, fair play. Well, there may be a little bit of home success that awaiting you in a week's time. But just before we do let you go, is there anyone you'd like to give a mention or a shout out to on the broadcast?
Of course, to the many talented people in my community, thank you to Gyro for the setup and crew chiefing, an amazing brain trust. A shout out to Linien, also known as Jesus Saavedra, who is in the A split of this GT3 Thursday League. It is an incredible time. Shoutouts to Antart for painting my liveries, and shoutouts to the many, many amazing people who keep me sane through these races, through the troubles, who celebrate the victories with me. It is a great pleasure. Thank you so much.
Well, and we have to say a big thank you to you for joining me for the interview. It's been great catching up with you, and well done once again on a superb result for 8th place in Premier. Long may the results come your way at the Hockenheimring, but until then, have a lovely rest of your evening.
Cheers, Paul. Thanks. Have a good one.
So a very happy Ellen Olsen there, and a big bit of relief as well. But goodness me, what a story that was towards the end of the race, with Clyde Vedder on 4 fresh tyres, closing that gap down by 1.3 seconds a lap. But that shows you the advantage of the tyres, but also Ellen Olsen demonstrating the advantage of a smooth strategy, aided, of course, by the input of those on the pit wall, including All About the Gyro, or Dwayne Hoffman, as we know him, and indeed the Plenty V racing driver holding her nerve at a circuit where she's gone well in the past and enjoying the Porsche 992. And the results are definitely started to come her way, and qualifying was strong, but in the race she definitely really showed that when she needs to drive at a pace, she really was able to extract it as needed. And well, at the Hockenheimring, a home circuit for her, only just down the road. You can imagine with the wet weather conditions, if she's able to get the practice in and enjoy driving in the wet as she typically does so, could we see Ellen Olsen make it another top 10 in Premier and perhaps even chase the top 5? Well, that'll be an exciting thought, won't it, ladies and gentlemen? And we look forward to that. But what we also look forward to in the here and now is another interview. So we step away, we'll be right back for another interview today. And so, ladies and gentlemen, we come to our third interview this evening. Staying in the Premier class now, but don't you worry, we do have some club drivers lined up. And joining me in the interview now is none other than James Howarth. James, good evening to you. And from racing the Transatlantic Trophy yesterday, we talked about you being in a very unfamiliar and strange machine of a McLaren. It must have felt good to be back behind the wheel of your Ford Mustang.
It was indeed, but it was a very disappointing race on my behalf. So I'm just kicking myself.
Now, it did go a bit wrong at the start of the race, but let's talk a little bit about qualifying firstly. Fourth overall, it is looking to be your spot to be on the second row of the grid at the moment. What's the gap, do you think, between yourself and, say, Liam with the Ford Mustang or getting on that front row?
It's literally fine margin, so probably the perfect lap, no traffic, or the slipstream at the right time. That'll probably the only thing that's separating the top 4 or 5 at this point.
Oh, indeed, it's such small margins, like you say. And then when we did go racing, you could say it was small margins that could have been the difference between you surviving turn 5 and not. I mean, from your perspective, you must have thought to yourself, you've done everything you can to avoid the wayward car of Eddie Theobold, but in the end, going to that grass, he was going to go out there anyway with the car rolling backwards.
Yeah, I saw him spit. I saw his back end go in my peripheral vision, and with the speed we were going, I didn't think he was going to roll back that far. But unfortunately, it was just a racing incident, and I was a passenger. So, unfortunately for that, and then it was just trying to play catch up for the rest of the race, and then unfortunately I got a black flag on the lap I was supposed to pit. So it was just, again, trying to play catch up and recovery drive.
Oh, goodness me, a very rough one at that, no doubt about it, and constantly trying to recover your way into the race, like you say. But all the way through, we saw you not give up, and it did look as though you did have a few dicey battles out there as you recovered your way through the order.
Yeah, there was a few juicy ones. Got a few nice overtakes, so I'm quite pleased, but disappointed with the actual overall position itself.
Oh, understandable. A bit of a disappointing result, even if the journey on the way was quite a fun one. So, a result that hasn't worked out. Of course, we do have the drop scores for this season, which could be a bit of a blessing in disguise. But either way, we go to the Hockenheim ring next. What are you thinking there for our next wet weather race?
I'm not really comfortable in the wet, as people know, so it is for me just a survival game. Get the setup pretty much planted for the rain, and see where we go from there, and try and pick up as many points as possible.
All fair play. Still some points to potentially be gained in the wet, even if it's not your cup of tea. But just before we do let you go, rather than ask who you wouldn't give a shout out today, I'm going to ask you a bit of a different question, which is essentially, if we were to add any other circuits to iRacing, what would they be?
Bahrain.
Oh,
because
love it.
That track is on the wet calendar, it's on the Endurance Championship, so why is it not on iRacing? So iRacing, get Bahrain, and I can tell you now that will be the massive hit going.
Oh, I love it. Definitely, I've put that up there as a circuit I'd love to see as well. Well, James, it's been fantastic catching up with yourself. Sorry it hasn't worked out today, even though you had plenty of fun out there on circuit, just not the results that you wanted. We'll see you at the Hockenheim ring in a week's time, and hopefully you'll have a brighter day there. Have a good evening all the same.
Yeah, you too, Paul. Take care.
So here and there, ladies and gentlemen, from James Howe. A bit frustrated today, understandably, with the way things have gone, but the flip side of the coin also being the fact that given the way that the race went out, he just simply had to try and dig in and see what he could get out of it. Unfortunately, what he could get out of it in the end was 13th place, and well, the result just not reflecting the pace he had brought to the table, and it all was due to just that little bit of difficulty in terms of that contact with Eddie Theobold himself, and just one of those innocent things. But in terms of what he's looking forward to the Hockenheim ring, not the biggest fan of the wet weather conditions, but will definitely fry himself at it and see what he can get out of it. I'd love to see Bahrain arrive on the simulator. Well, you never know what could be coming in the seasonal updates to come. But right now, in terms of what we don't know what's coming, is who we're going to have in the interview room next. Although we do know we've got another one to come, so therefore let's step away. We'll be right back. And well, ladies and gentlemen, we did make you a promise of speaking to a club driver at least, and we're not going to fall down that promise because we now come to the club class, and it is to Danny Weir, who joins me in the interview room. Danny, good evening to you, and well, what a challenging race it's been today. Some moments you made your way up the order, other moments you slipped back down the order. I mean, can you make sense of the fact you finished in 6th today?
Yeah, I think I'm in a Porsche, so it's since the up the bop. It's struggled. It's struggled a lot. I was more surprised that I was in 2nd at one point. I didn't really realise what's going on. I was just driving along, and then I just checked. I was like, wait, why am I in 2nd? And then suddenly 3rd, 4th, and 5th are all behind me. I'm like, okay, well, there we go.
Oh, goodness me. But as we dial it all the way back to the start, of course, the Porsche, not a power car, but definitely a power circuit today. 20th overall in qualifying, 6th in class. very fine margins separating many of the club class drivers. How do you feel your qualifying was?
Qualifying was difficult. It was very hard to get consistent laps. The track limits around here are tight, so you had to be really consistent to get good times in. So I was fairly okay with qualifying. I think I was in P6 in class, so that was pretty good for me. I was quite happy with that. I think I could have maybe found another couple of attempts if my laps went the way I wanted them to go, but overall I was quite happy with 6th.
All fair play, happy with that. And then when we did go racing, did you have a strategy in mind before the race started, or was it one of those ones whereby you had to improvise? I guess you'd probably decided you were going to do a 2-stop, but how were you planning to cut it?
So yeah, there was talks about cutting it in thirds, but then there was a risk, obviously, but doing that, then you could underfuel one of the stints and end up being a lap short. So in the end, I think I played it safe and just did a full tank just for the first stint, and then second stint just topped up where I needed left. Because obviously as well, you don't want to be running a compromised stint if you don't know if you're going to be in clean air or you're going to be in traffic with slipstream and stuff. So it was just playing it safe really, and just trying to stay out of trouble in the early parts of the race, and yeah, just basically just keeping it on the straight and narrow really.
Well, definitely tried to stay out of trouble as much as possible. Perhaps trouble did find you a little bit over the race distance. We did see a few good fights between yourself and club drivers, but also a few Premier drivers wanted to get involved as well. And I get the feeling at certain points, yourself and Premier drivers such as, for example, Govind Suresh, might have been trying to have a bit of an argument on the road as to, no, I want to be leading, I've got people to chase.
Well, yeah, it's difficult because it's multi-class racing, and you don't want to be compromising your own race. I got a bit frustrated, obviously, the turn 1 incident that you caught on stream. It just seemed a bit pointless that you're fighting that hard with someone you're not in class with. But it's the pros and cons of racing in multi-class. I do love multi-class racing because in the days where the Porsche was working well for me and I can get past the pro drivers and put them between me and the club drivers, it's all the better really. But it's a race, so you can't really expect people to move out your way or to let you past. You've got to make the overtakes happen yourself. And I was quite lucky in the sense that the Porsche, although obviously was struggling through a lot of the corners, seemed to have a pretty good top end. And a lot of cars were struggling, even with slipstream, to get past me. So I was quite happy. But at the end of the day, if there was a pro driver behind me, I wasn't going to put up an overkill fight to try and get in front of it. But I would have had to put a decent battle in because I need to catch up either to ones in front or to gap the cars behind.
All fair play. Taking that approach there, very logical approach, no doubt about it, and definitely trying to maximise the amount of time on the road. As the race did come towards its closing points, what do you think sort of pulled you away from the top 5 fight? Because we did see you sort of dip your toes into top 5 at certain points, but in the end taking a 6th place in the class.
Well, after the contact at turn 1 with Eddie, I had I think it was a 14x incident points. And then I did a silly corner cut and had a 15x. Obviously, the limit was the limit was 16 before you got a drive-through. So the last half an hour, I had to really be careful because, like I said, the track limits are killer around here. So I had to really lift off and focus on just keeping it on the track. So I was content with 6th place. I just had to make sure that I had enough gap between myself and Josh, because I saw he come a cropper to a drive-through penalty as well, which put him behind me. So as long as I kept that gap, and then the last 5 or so laps, I really eased it off. Tyres were really bad as well by the end of it. They're really overheating, and wear was ridiculous. So it just made it even more difficult to keep the car on track and not get that extra X for something silly. So yeah, it was just basically self-preservation and trying to hold that 6th place really.
Oh, well, the self-preservation definitely worked out in the end, and a smart call to bring yourself home safe and sound. But next up, of course, we have the Hockenheim Ring. Wet weather is expected as well. Do you feel as though you'll go favourably there?
Well, Hockenheim is not a good overtaking track in normal conditions. In the wet, it's going to be interesting. I do like the wet. I did last wet race, I think I finished 2nd. So I hope to replicate that again and try and get up there. I do seem to do quite well in the wet races. So yeah, it's just basically finding that line that you need, the drier line, being careful of puddles, and yeah, just playing it against, just being sensible really, not getting too hot-headed when you're racing.
Well, As you say, just got to keep it smart there and keep your head cool. And, well, we'll have to wait and see whether you can make a bit of a magical result happen at the Hockenheim Ring. But just before I do let you go, Danny, is there anyone you'd like to give a shout-out or a thank you to live on the broadcast?
Well, thank you to yourself, obviously, for the commentary. Then watching it back, I've just seen Andy Chell's crash, and I think that's brilliant. I want to watch that a couple of times. But, yeah, massive thank you to the DXT boys, as always. They always keep our heads together. And that, congratulations as well to Ross Young, who won in Pro today. Pro today in the Split A. So well done to him. And I'm unlucky for James because he was doing really well, and it would have been his 5th consecutive podium if he just kept it clean. But unfortunately, he was a bit unlucky today.
Well, to be fair, your teammates giving it all in Split A, like you've given it all today here in Split B, and we love to see you out there, Danny, trying for those top 5 results in club. Didn't quite happen here, but I'm sure it may come at the Hockenheim Ring. We'll see you there, but until then, have a wonderful rest of your evening.
You too, mate. See you later.
So here and there, ladies and gentlemen, from Danny Weir, the club driver today mentioned the fact that right at the start, after that early incident between himself and Eddie Theobold, put him on at 14 instant points and really was confined in the end to driving a very safe and sensible race. Unfortunately, given the fact the risk of a drive-through was only 1 penalty point away, but at the same time as well, definitely being smart there and making sure that he was the one who stayed on the road and wasn't called in for the drive-through, unlike Joshua Downing, filling in a gap there, a blank that we did not see for the 267 driver. But other than that, keep his spirits high and positive, and while targeting what could be another good result at the Hockenheim Ring. But they're mentioning in the wet at the German circuit, it's all about keeping your cool, and that's going to be his game plan. And well, definitely Danny is one of those drivers whereby when he is able to keep it cool, calm and collected, knowing some big results come his way, like they do at Dexterous Motorsport Sign in general, could it be an opportunity in round number 6 to see a podium, if not a win, come his way in club? We will see there. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we've got a couple more interviews still to go, and well, without further ado, we're going to step away for a brief moment, but we promise you we'll be back. And so for our penultimate interview today, ladies and gentlemen, we stay in the club class and we go to a man who definitely had a spectacular end to his race, albeit not for the right reasons, because joining me now, it's none other than Andy Chell. Andy, good evening to you, and well, what a race you've had, from some major progress being made after qualifying to a car that in the end ended up into the sky and came crashing down to the earth. Firstly, are you okay?
Yeah, well, evening, Paul. Yeah, I'll be honest. As soon as I heard them, because I couldn't see it because iRacing froze, as soon as I heard the rumble strip for the kink, I let go of the wheel. And I'm very glad I did because it turned into a helicopter. So, yeah. But yeah, I'm all good. I'm all good.
Oh, goodness me, what a nasty moment that. But meanwhile, let's talk about a bit more of the positives. Here today, qualifying perhaps not as strong as we have seen you in a couple of the more previous rounds, but to be fair, when we did get the racing underway, yourself and Simon, you both had the chance to work together, something you didn't get to do last time out at VIR or indeed at Spa-Francorchamps.
Yeah, I mean, we were trying to work together in qualifying. It just unfortunately didn't quite go the way we expected it to. So, like you say, it set us back a little bit, but in the race itself, yeah, we were working together quite well. We were pretty linked on strategy, really, to be honest with you. First pit stops, we got planned out. We came in, I think, 10 seconds apart, something like that. With how we shuffled things around and little mistakes that have been made. But the plan was short pit stop, which Si managed to get through. My iRacing added a bit more fuel in than I wanted it to. So I would have been going longer on the second stint until we tried to audition for the Red Arrows. But other than that, yeah, I mean, the Aston race pace, it had more race pace in it than it had qualifying pace, I think, because both me and Simon were struggling to get the type of times we were getting in practice with the setup. So don't know if it's something with us tonight or whatever, but we were both struggling. So a little bit more tailored towards the race maybe, but it was a 90-minute race, so to be fair, there's always more to gain in the race than there is in qualifying. Yes, it's always nice to qualify higher, but on especially a track like Road America, there is a lot of overtaking opportunity. So it wasn't a massive issue that we were a little further down than we wanted. But yeah, for me, the everything went out the window when that horrendous crash happened. For Simon, we kept to the same plan. So fuel and left-hand tyres on his second stop, which did him quite well, served him quite well. He was overfueled a little bit, but we'd rather be overfueled than underfueled. So yeah, all in all, good pace in the car. So again, as I've said a few times this season, the car's there. It might not be the fastest overall, or as people say, the meta car, but it's working for us. So overall positive. Would have been interesting to see where I could have got with, because I was going all 4 tyres in the second stop, so it would have been interesting to see where I've got, because even after I came out with the repair, I was quicker than a lot of people around me, so would have been interesting to see. But it is what it is, and that's racing at the end of the day. So.
Oh, most definitely. And I do like you saying about something in the air tonight, although I think Phil Collins wasn't thinking about a stratospheric Aston Martin when he said that as a musical lyric. But at the same time as well, the fact getting the car repaired and getting out there and knowing that you've got the pace in the Aston Martin and just not perhaps the luck here today with the crash in particular. But the flip side of the coin is we've still got 5 rounds to go. Next up is the Hockenheim Ring and wet weather, and well, it could be more of a race about survival than being the quickest.
True. I mean, we both know I like a bit of a wet round, so we'll see how it goes. I like Hockenheim. It's a nice track to race. A little tighter than tonight, but there is some very good overtaking spots as well. So as long as we can get the car working, we'll be okay, I think. But it all does depend on exactly how the setup works, because it's depending on when the weather's coming up, depending on how we set. If we go for the dry setup, slightly compromise for the wet, or a wet setup and just live with it in the dry. So yeah, it'll depend on the forecast, to be honest with you. But yeah, hopefully we can see a little bit of Andy Chell wet weather magic. So let's see.
Oh, indeed. It'd be great to see some of your magic being shone there in the wet weather, and we hope to see it. But just before I do let you go, rather than ask who you may give a shout out to today, I'm going to throw a question I gave to James Howarth earlier. If there's one circuit or a number of circuits you'd like to see in iRacing tomorrow that's not there, what would they be?
Oh, that is a good, interesting question. I think I'd like to see. Let's have a think. What have we not got that would be a really good, fun circuit for us to race at? Do you know what? I'd like to see Qatar. Actually, I'd like to see the Qatar circuit in iRacing, and actually, them. A lot of the Middle Eastern race tracks, actually, to be fair. So like Bahrain, Qatar. I'm not sure on Abu Dhabi, because I've only ever really seen Formula 1 around there. I haven't really seen sports car around there, so I don't really know how that would work for that. But it's still another addition to the calendar. It'd be a nice, interesting one. So yeah, I think it'd be nice to see them tracks, and maybe Melbourne as well. The Melbourne street circuit would be quite nice to see again. It's another fun, very fast circuit, so I imagine it'd be quite fun in the GT3. So yeah, I think I'd like to see more Asian and Pacific tracks come in, to be fair.
Oh, a good shout, to be fair, Andy. And, well, James earlier on said Bahrain. He immediately went straight to Bahrain and said that categorically. And, well, the two of you definitely align in there with the thought of Qatar, Bahrain and some of the Middle Eastern circuits, and also Melbourne in the Oceania region. But with that, well, it's been great catching up with yourself. And sorry it didn't quite work out today the way you wanted it to. But surely some better luck to come your way at the Hockenheim Ring. But until then, thank you for joining me and have a wonderful rest of your evening.
And you, matey. See you soon.
So here and there, ladies and gentlemen, from Andy Chell for Quackmass Motorsport, and understandably a little bit downbeat there with what happened, although the good thing is, first and foremost, all okay. Got his hands away from the steering wheel as soon as he could tell what was about to happen when he went into the kink, and he could hear the car running over the rumble strips, even though his iRacing client had frozen. And well, shortly afterwards, of course, if he had not taken his hands away, I suspect he may have had some quite bruised hands, if not perhaps some broken fingers. These direct drive wheels, we should point out, are no joke when you consider that they are pushing the best part of sometimes anywhere anywhere between 20 to 14 Newton meters of torque. And, well, in a big instant, if it's simulated on the wheel at full feedback, it can be bad. But it wasn't bad for Andy, and in the end, only today, the bad thing was that the car was left in a bit of a crumpled heap. However, did get it fast repaired and had the pace out there. And we're working with his teammate Simon as well. They tried to work together in qualifying, but didn't work out. But on the road, it did. Although in the end, they were split by the fact different fuel usage between both drivers. And we're hoping for a better day at the Hockenheimring. We know Andy's got the pace, and could we see a bit of a wet weather special from him? Hopefully we will, because we want to see him up there chasing top fives and podiums. And indeed, making sure by default he's established in the top 10 of the club class, much like his teammate Simon Hunt. We want to see Quatermass right up there, and well, I'm sure you're all with me on that. But we've got one more interview to come, and without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, we step away for a brief moment for our final, and it's our club interviewee. And so, ladies and gentlemen, we come to a man who's definitely had a bit of a up and down day, because joining me in the interview room now is none other than Michael Rhodes. Michael, good evening to you. And what a tough end to what was such a brilliant drive from yourself. I mean, it has been the best part of half an hour or so, but I can imagine the fires are still burning a little bit in your mind.
Well, yeah, a little bit. Yeah, as you said, good race, especially from where I qualified. Had the podium in the bag, and then, yeah, them last few laps were a little bit, were fun, but a little bit chaotic.
Now, before we talk about what happened right at the end, let's talk a little bit about perhaps a shock. Qualifying, 21st overall, 7th in class. Were you okay with qualifying, or were you sat there thinking to yourself, what's going wrong?
A little bit. I was a little bit surprised by it. I thought I could have gotten to the 202s. I just couldn't get a lap together. I blame maybe I lost a little bit of time eating my food because it was a little bit late being ready. But it is what it is. I knew I had better race pace than qualifying pace here. So, again, wasn't too worried as long as I kept the race clean, which I did for most of it. It would have been fine. But yeah.
Well, in the end, as like you say, it'll be fine in the race. Qualifying is just one part of the story, and we did see you make some rather rapid progress in the race, although it did seem as though your destiny was always going to be tied to an opportunity for the podium. Did you have to improvise your strategy at any point? Because the strategy today has played a huge part in the story for so many drivers.
I think I messed up on. I think the strategy is what lost me the podium, if anything. I tried to be clever. I changed to front left in the first stop, which wasn't too bad. I'd lost a bit of time, but I thought I'd gain it back. And then in the second stop, I forgot to untick my tyres, so it changed my front right. So that pretty much put me on the back foot. So yeah, a little bit of a shot in the foot, and just put me in places I didn't want to be. But yeah, it happens.
Oh, indeed. Well, sorry to hear about that, but interesting to hear the strategic insight from yourself. And then, of course, we come on to what was that final instant. Now, to be fair, before it did go wrong, we were being treated to a brilliant freeway fight of yourself and Michael Lecco coming storming up behind Rob Gregg. I mean, did you... Obviously, you must have noticed that you were closing up to Rob Gregg quite quickly, but was it a bit of a shock to see that Michael Lecco, who had changed all 4 tyres in his first pit stop, was gaining so rapidly on you?
Well, it wasn't a surprise because I did notice his pace about halfway through the race. I thought, okay, he could be an interesting danger at the end, and he was. So yeah, it was nice to have a nice three-way battle. To be fair, I think I had battles with a few other drivers as well. I know I had a good battle with Josh. I know I made a move on Danny, which he probably cursed me for, but I caught him in the surprise. So yeah, it was good racing, a lot around. And then yeah, the end was a little bit messy.
Oh, indeed it was. And well, to be fair, you did try and attempt the free wide into Canada quarter, and something tells me that from your perspective, just that tiny touch of grass with that front right tyre could have turned what could have been an absolute epic 2-for-1 into a bit of a nudge to Rob Gregg's car.
Yeah, I think Rob didn't know who to defend. I think what you're saying in the chat. And obviously, the pace of Lecco was obviously there. So yeah, 3 into 1 obviously doesn't go. I did brake, and then I think the ABS kicked in, so it kind of probably ran me a little bit out. But yeah, the grass caught me out. took Rob out. Obviously, could have given the place back, but was able to give him the place back later on after me and Lecco had a bit of a incident further into the next lap.
Oh, I did. And the two of you there having quite the coming together, shall we say, at turn number 5. But good to hear that you were able to give the place back to Rob as well. And I'm sure he'll appreciate the respect shown there, because we know at the end of the day, you all want to race fairly and not gain unfairly. But it's a 5th place from today. It does bring to an end what has been quite a good run of results quite recently. Although 5th's not bad, it should be said. Now, into the second half of the season we go. Hockenheimring is next, but the rain is going to fall. Yay or nay?
Oh, yay. 100% yay. If with the rain from what track we had rain in now? God, which one was it?
We had Bathurst earlier.
That was the one, yeah. So if I could copy that performance, it should be a fun one, and hopefully another podium if I can get it.
Well, we'd definitely love to see you chase the podium, if not the win there. And just before I do let you go, I'm also going to pitch the question I've asked to Andy Chell and James Howarth early on. Rather than talking about who to give a shout-out to today, if you had to add one or a couple of circuits to iRacing tomorrow, what would they be?
Oh, that's a good one. I'd love to see a few of the old F1 tracks in there. I'd love to see Bahrain in there. Obviously, especially for the endurance side of it, that'd be great to see Bahrain in there. I think, personally, with me, like one of my favorite F1 tracks is China. So if that came into iRacing, I'd love that, the Shanghai circuit in the game.
Oh, fair play. A bit of an unconventional answer. We haven't had Shanghai mentioned. We have had Bahrain mentioned by all 3 of you now, to be fair. I'm not sure if you've all shared the same answers beforehand, but Shanghai makes me think about that circuit. Now, that is definitely a good call there and a lesser-known one. But to be fair at the same time, Michael, we'll have to end it there, but a brilliant drive from yourself today, even if the result hasn't quite reflected the chance of the podium that you did have. But I'm sure you'll be back to it at the Hockenheimring. But until then, have a wonderful rest of your evening.
You too. Thank you.
So here now, ladies and gentlemen, from the Darkwing Racing driver of Michael Rhodes in the club class. And, well, today, definitely not the way he wanted it to end. I mentioned that in qualifying, whilst he didn't quite get it together, he thought there was a bit more time out there, wasn't too worried it would be the race where it would all be made. And he made some good progress, battling as he did with the likes of Danny Weir, and definitely having a bit of an intriguing battle with him. And to go for a bit of a bold move, also having to battle his way past Joshua Downing, who you do see the two of them battling right now on screen, with Rhodes being the pursuer. But it was in that final stint where he shouldn't have been in that place in the first place, making the error of the pit stop, trying to be smart with the tyre change on the front in both pit stops, and in the end losing out time, and then had to fight his way past Rob Gregg, but had the growing presence of Michael Lecco, who'd made his own error early in the race that put him in a position behind him. So 3 did not go into 1 at Canada Corner, although Michael there turned out the fact in that braking zone, Rob not knowing which way to go, given it was free wide at very short notice, and Michael on the brakes, triggering the ABS, the car got carried more into the corner, and then just that tiny touch of the grass into the corner made the difference, made the contact. Although he did give the place back after his own altercation, Michael Lecco into turn number 5 a lap later, so it was all addressed in the end, but a bit of a scrappy end, but it hasn't upset Michael, to be fair. He's got his head down, and is looking forward to the Hockenheimring and the prospect of wet weather there, and we look forward to seeing whether he can make it another magical moment like he did at Bathurst. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that brings our interviews to a close. And goodness me, what a set of interviews we've had today. And, well, let's give you a quick recap of who we've spoken to. And we've had 6 interviews this evening. Given it's an endurance race round, why not have an absolute bumper edition of interviews with so many volunteers as well? I'll tell you one thing, as soon as we put the post out at the end of the race to say who's up for volunteering for an interview, it was absolutely packed in the debrief room. And we started off with Connor Pink, our priority in the Premier class. And what a brilliant job from him, his maiden podium of the season, and a very happy day at Road America for him. Then we came to Ellen Olsen, another superstar of the day, taking an 8th place finish in the Felinity TV Racing Drive, delivering her best result of the season so far in terms of the performance, and we look forward to seeing her move forward even more, and perhaps in the second half of the season, could we see a maiden top 5. Then we came to James Howarth, who completed our premier leg of our interviews, the Dexterous Motorsport Scion Drive, back in his comfort zone, going from his McLaren from the Transatlantic Trophy to the Ford Mustang here today, but unfortunately that incident on lap number 1 definitely turned things astray, and now he's got a bit more work to do in the pursuit of the championship, where as he mentioned, it's all coming down to very fine margins in qualifying, and then the instance and a bit of luck and fortune in the races. In the club class, we then went, and it was Danny Weir Weir, who was first up on the interviews, and Dexter's Motorsport Sandra telling us his story about 6th place today in a race that definitely tried to move forward, but unfortunately his instant points held him back. And then Andy Chell for QMS Motorsport with a shock incident at the kink, but to be fair, all okay and enjoying the day until it all went wrong. And then we came to Michael Rhodes, who we just spoke to for Dark Ring Racing, a chance at a podium, perhaps going right with regards to strategy, but definitely going astray with the 3-wide incident going into Canada Corner on the penultimate lap, but still enjoying the racing out there, no doubt about that. And a huge thank you to all 6R interviews. It's been a blast chatting to them all. We look forward to even more interviews our drivers in the week ahead. But until then, ladies and gentlemen, it's now time for us to wrap up. And thank you very much for watching. And if you have enjoyed today's show, and perhaps you're sat there right now itching to know how you can get on the grid to go racing with us here at SimRacing International, well, all you need to do is join our official Discord. Invite link at the bottom of your screen, and then you are going to be eligible, as long as you pay the entry fee, to join any of our ongoing championship series, or indeed any that we have upcoming, including, of course, the Thursday GT3 Championship in its 13th season, on the very far left of this screen, which you've been tuning into today, the Split B of. Alternatively, if you prefer the older GT machines, the GTEs, the Grand Touring endurance cars of the 1999 through to 2023 era, well, we do have those every second Friday evening, and we are gearing up for a phenomenal season with our season opener in just over a week's time. But if you're more of a GT3 person but prefer to race on the weekends, don't fret, we've got you covered on Sunday evenings in the UK Sim Racing Sunday Showdown, as that continues its 19th instalment in terms of seasons. But if you're looking for something brand new, if you're looking to change the best of the best here at Sim Racing International, we do have our Transatlantic Trophy, the Motorsport UK Esports Approved Championship, and that is set to get underway in just under 2 weeks' time with its opening round, the pre-season event held yesterday. And well, all dedicated to McLaren GT3 and GT4 cars with a twist of more power and less weight in them, and also fixed setups, and you definitely could not ask for a more potent combination of machinery to go batting with in a team and driver focused championship. But if you're looking for something for far more casual, if you're looking for something that's free of charge to enter, we do of course have our practice league that runs with 3 races every week. They change the days of course to align with our official practicing for our series. But indeed, there's something for everybody here at SimRacing International, whether you're a rookie racer all the way through to an esports professional. And we'd like to take a moment as well to say a big thank you to our series and league sponsors, who do include CarMate, Modern Technology, and the GP2 Group. Plus, we'd like to give a big mention to Motorsport UK's esports division for recognising us as a recommended community here at SimRacing International. We're very grateful for their recognition, and long may it continue throughout 2026 and beyond. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that is the first half of the season complete. And as we bring the opening half of season 13 to a close for Split B, well, what a season it has been so far. There's one name in Premier, however, who seems to be shining just that little bit brighter than everybody else. Liam Fraser with 3 wins now. And well, can anybody slow him down? His closest rival, Menno Bloem, will be hoping to do so, but if not, it may require one of his other rivals to potentially put a fork in the progression of the championship. As for the club class, meanwhile, we'll get on the fact today we saw a maiden win for Michael Lecco go straight, and Jack Giles would take it instead. Well, the one thing that's very certain about the club class is that we have a very healthy amount of competition, and well, it's going to be very interesting to see which way it all swings. However, the championship leader, Michael Rose, will definitely have been somewhat compromised, but not because Joshua Downing was able to beat him today, but because all of the rivals further down, including Ashley Shucksmith, Jack Giles, and also there none other than Rob Craig, have all gained ground, and therefore it'll be interesting to see who can turn things around in the second half of the season in club, as Mill can anyway chase down our leader in Premier. Well, the good news is, next time out on Thursday, the 6th of August, we continue the story. There's no mid-season break, and we will be in Germany at the Hockenheimring Baden-Württemberg. Wet weather is expected at the Grand Prix circuit, and we look forward to seeing who can conquer the wet and come away victorious in Germany. But until then, we've been SimRacing International, and I've been your host and commentator, Paul Walsh, and until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, and most importantly, as always, ladies and gentlemen, remember to stay on track. Good night.